E o assunto é som. Na telegrafia, né, você pode usar o som, pode usar um sinal de luz. É muito comum no passado, né, o pessoal ali em navios, né, mandava sinal de luz, né, e usando o código Morse, ok? A mesma coisa que a gente faz com os sons, né? Por exemplo, essa é a letra S. Letra S, então, você pode ter 3 pulsos de luz, né? Aqui você tem 3 sons curtos, ok? Que é a letra S, por exemplo. Ou 3 sons longos, né? Que é a letra O. Ok? Então, um SOS. Um SOS, famoso SOS, 3 sons curtos. O O, né, do Oscar. 3 sons longos e o S, novamente, 3 sons curtos. Então, imagina numa situação, né, que você tem lá uma embarcação correndo um certo risco, uma emergência, um naufrágio lá iminente, naquela condição de falta de comunicação telegráfica ou rádio, né, tem aquela sinalização de luz, né, aquela sinalização de luz que você já viu nos navios, tá bom? Auxilia nesse momento, né? Você faz a mesma coisa com luz, ok? Então, você transmite sons ou transmite em sinais luminosos, que é o mesmo código, ok? Mas falando de sons hoje, no nosso curso de telegrafia, a gente vai ver alguns elementos que iremos usar no curso de CW, que é importante vermos um pouquinho antes de iniciarmos, ok? Que é o universo do som, né? O som é bem interessante, tem diversos sons que você conhece, sons, né, como de instrumentos musicais, sons da voz humana, né, sons aí dos animais, né? Cada animal tem um som característico que ele emite, né, sons, né, de buzina de carro, de motor, enfim. Você tem diversos sons que você identifica. Para nós, na telegrafia, né, vai ser um som específico, né, um som que você escolhe dentro de uma coisa chamada range auditivo, ok? Quando a gente fala de range auditivo, é a frequência ou as frequências que o ouvido humano consegue captar, ok? Normalmente, né, o range, né, dos ouvidos, né, de tanto a tanto que a gente consegue ouvir. Então, vai de 20 Hz, mais ou menos, até 20 kHz, ok? Essa é a extensão sonora do ouvido humano. Ainda novo, né, no ouvido humano aí, numa idade tenra, né, que você tem essa condição de ouvir essa plenitude toda aí. Alguns, né, vão um pouquinho mais para frente, alguns um pouco menos, tá? Mas a média hoje aceitável é de 20 a 20 kHz, ou seja, de 20 a 20 mil Hz. Os sons na faixa aí dos 20 Hz são sons de baixa frequência, ok? A gente chama de sons graves. E os sons, né, conforme vão subindo nessa escala, vai subindo a frequência auditiva, ok? Frequência de áudio, né, audiofrequência, ela vai se tornando mais aguda, tá bom? Então você sai lá dos 20 Hz, né, baixa vibração, né, 20 Hz significa 20 oscilações por segundo, ok? Você ouve um puf, 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 alguma coisa mais ou menos nesse naipe, puf, puf, né? Alguns alto-falantes que respondem frequências baixas, subwoofers, né, eles trabalham nessa faixa de frequência, até menos, né? Alguns respondem até 10 Hz, mas fala, bom, eu não vou estar ouvindo os 10 Hz, né, para quê? Que ele trabalha em 10 Hz. Característica, tem amplificadores que respondem até menos de 10 Hz, eles trabalham em 5 Hz, 3 Hz, né, aquele puf, puf. Você não ouve o som, mas você vê o falante, né, o cone se deslocando, ok? Chama dispersão, né, ele se movimenta, então você vê ele puf, né, dá uma pancada para frente, né? Você não vai estar ouvindo som de tão baixa frequência, mas quando ele faz uma sequência vibratória de 20 vezes por segundo, né, 20 Hz, ele, tá bom? Ele vai estar chacoalhando, né, principalmente um falante para baixas frequências, subwoofer, ele vai estar ressonando nessa frequência de 20 Hz, ok? Você vê ele balançando, ok? O cone, né, vindo e voltando, ok? Frequências baixas, aí você vai subindo, né, vai chegando em frequências ali medianas, vai subindo, vai para frequências mais altas, até o máximo de 20.000 Hz, né, ou 20.000 oscilações por segundo. Então, esse é o range que o ouvido humano consegue captar, ok? Especificamente na telegrafia, você não vai trabalhar como na música, né? Música, você tem sons, né, graves, médios e agudos, né, e sons que vão estar em todo esse range, ok? Em diversas partes desse segmento, de 20 a 20 kHz, ou de 20 oscilações por segundo até 20.000 oscilações por segundo, bem rápido, ok? Então, o nosso ouvido humano consegue captar nessa faixa intermediária. Para telegrafia, ainda agora, né, para o nosso universo do CW, você não vai ter interesse, né, de fazer como na música. Na música você ouve lá todo o range, né, baixo, um som de um violino, um som de um prato, né, de uma bateria, uma flauta, um instrumento, né, que tem um som bem agudo, ok? Então você tem toda uma extensão, né, de sons na música e usa, né? O pessoal usa lá no som do carro, aquela pancada, aquele negócio mais forte, né, a voz lá do cantor, um instrumento, né, numa frequência média ou mais alta. Então a música usa, né, toda uma extensão, né, de 20 a 20.000 Hz. Já na telegrafia você não vai usar toda essa extensão, ok? Vai usar uma parte desse segmento. Normalmente você usa de frequências médias para cima, tá? E não vai muito agudo também, né? Não adianta ter um som muito agudo que para telegrafia é interessante ser um som inteligível, ok? Vou te dar um exemplo de um som inteligível. Tá? Essa frequência aqui, ó. Tá? Eu estou numa determinada frequência nessa escala de 20 a 20 kHz, ok? Ele tem um frequencímetro, né, para saber qual a frequência que eu estou usando, de áudio, né, áudio-frequência. Ele teria uma relação aí numérica, tá bom? Precisão de qual som a gente está ouvindo, em que frequência está esse som. Ele está numa frequência. Se eu abrir o manipulador, ele tem um variável lá dentro, que eu faço esse som ficar um pouquinho mais grave, vai caindo, né? Ou vai ficando um pouco mais agudo, vai subindo. Okay? Então, esse ajuste do som do seu manipulador, você acerta. Né? Pode ser no rádio, pode ser no próprio manipulador, tá bom? Então, é um som ajustável.
Bom, a gente vai dar intervalo. Lembrando que essa parte introdutória do curso vai durante toda a semana, ok? Hoje, segunda-feira até sábado, somente introdução aí, tranquilo? Quem perdeu a primeira edição, ou quem perdeu a segunda edição, pega na playlist aula número 1, tranquilo? A semana que vem, a gente já entra aí para valer nos caracteres. Tá? Então, quem perdeu a aula na parte da manhã ou à tarde, você pega na playlist, não tem problema, ok? Agora, importante, semana que vem a gente pega já 2 caracteres, tá bom? Segunda-feira, os 2 primeiros caracteres aí do curso. Bom, boa tarde para o Sérgio. Grande abraço em Sérgio, tudo de bom. Cabral, também grande abraço, tudo de bom. Demais corujas e aves do paraíso, radiofrequência, internet. Grande abraço e tudo de bom. Vou dar intervalo e já retornando em legislação.
My name is also Dan, Delta Alpha November, so no mistake there, Dan. And you're 5 and 9 plus about 10 dB over the 9, okay? And my QTH is Bristol on the southwest of England. W3DF G3VM, over.
forward, 5 and 6. Very good copy. And they're very, very quiet. Very, very quiet. No QRM, no noise. Just a slight background hit. That's about all that I hear on the frequency. I'm running about a KW output to a 3-element Yankee. The transceiver is an ICOM 7600. So we seem to have propagation here into Spain and the UK at the moment. G3VM, W3DF.
Yeah, okay, Dan. W3DF, G3VM returning. It's working well, the 1kW and the 3-element. It's working well. Same conditions here antenna-wise. 3-element ultra beam here at about 20 meters. And my transceiver is an FTDX 9000D with just 150 watts from the radio, Dan. That's the working conditions at the minute. No amplifier. The amplifier is turned off while we talk now. But I know it's very, very quiet band this evening, actually. No noise this side as well. Just good, clean, solid signals, Dan. But saying that, you're the band isn't exactly very busy, but you're surprisingly very loud for such a quiet band this side. But okay, I'll leave you to it, mate, and hopefully you'll get some more propagation into Europe and other parts, maybe of the UK. So I'll leave you to the frequency, Dan. Enjoy the QSO. W3DF, G3VM in Bristol, over.
Okay, Dan, very good. Well, you're doing a nice job feeding 5 and 7, almost 5 and 8 that time. No problem at all. Thanks for the call and the contact. Hope to meet you again. You have a good evening there. We're early afternoon here, just past 1 p.m. in the afternoon, where it's overcast, dull, dreary, overcast day with some rain all on and off, and temperature about +3. 7-3, all the best. We'll see you again, Tom. Dan, see you again, Dan. G3VM, W3DF. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers, Dan. Enjoyed the QSO, mate, and look forward to the next one. W3DF, Golf 3, Victor Mike. Take care.
Bye-bye. C3 Delta Fox. Echo, merci. Bonsoir, C.RODADA, oui, tout de suite. Der 4-element Mini-Beam auf the conception from Victor Kilo 2 Alpha Oscar United and have 400 watts, Tony. 400 watts. You have 100 watts on a dipole. Okay, Tony, I hope you have a good 2017 for you and your family.
Sorry for the shaking, guys. I'm holding the tripod.
Und bis auf ein baldiges Wiederhören. I hope you see in the next time also with better condition. Golf number 6, Mike Whiskey Sierra. David King to Mike Henry. Listening for defined Tony Correct.
Thanks for watching. 7-3.
Hello everyone, I'm Pascal, Victor Alpha 2 Papa Victor. Welcome to my shack. Today I will be showing you something new. I don't know if you noticed, but I got something new in my shack, which is this Kenwood TS990. I'm very proud of, and I did trade in my FTDX3000 from PY2EXU, which I love very much, but I couldn't hold myself when I saw this one on the used flea market from someone I know, and I'm very, 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 very happy about this new acquisition. I don't know if you're like me, but you know, sometimes you go around the internet when you have something that you are interested in, and you actually don't find what you're looking for. You're looking at, let's say you're going to see people unboxing equipment. You're going to see people showing problems about an equipment. They're going to show a specific part of it, but never a quick tour about what it feels like to own this type of equipment. So that is something I'm going to try to do today, and try to show you a quick tour about this radio. The first thing, if I compare to my FTDX3000, the first thing I notice is that in the back of the radio, there's missing some port. Believe it or not, the FTDX3000 have more option in the back. It has, let's say, the 990 here doesn't have the PTT connection, RCA PTT connection.
Então vamos lá. O artigo 1º fala o seguinte: este regulamento tem por objetivo disciplinar as condições para a execução do serviço de radioamador e a obtenção do certificado de operador de estação de radioamador. As estações do serviço de radioamador devem operar nas condições estabelecidas no regulamento de uso do espectro de radiofrequências, como no regulamento sobre condições de uso de radiofrequências para estações do serviço de radioamador. Então você percebe que esse artigo 1º é direto aí para nós, radioamadores. Fala que você vai precisar do quê? Do seu COER. Você vai ter depois a sua licença, ok? E tudo isso especificado aqui no artigo 1º. Tranquilo? Então, dos objetivos. A partir do momento que você quer ser radioamador, vai precisar aí do COER, da licença. Consequentemente, você vai ter o seu indicativo, ok? Então, o artigo 1º fala aqui desse objetivo maior, que é a obtenção do COER. Bom, o artigo 2º fala o seguinte: a execução do serviço de radioamador é regida pela Lei 9.472, de 1997, pelo Regulamento dos Serviços de Telecomunicações e por outros regulamentos, normas aplicáveis ao serviço. Então, o artigo 2º fala da Lei Geral das Telecomunicações. A gente estuda sempre, analisa esta legislação. Quando chegarmos no artigo 73, 7º, 3º, esse artigo fala das sanções aplicadas aos radioamadores, ok? Então, nesse momento, a gente vai para essa lei aqui, ó, que é 9.472, ok? Nesse momento, não. Por enquanto, a gente vai ficar só nessa legislação, lendo aqui todos os artigos, mas quando chegarmos aqui no 7.3, a gente vai para essa lei, ok? Toda a parte de sanção aos radioamadores está nessa legislação aqui, que é a Lei Geral das Telecomunicações, tá bom? Mas lá na hora eu aviso. A gente abre essa legislação, a gente lê nesses 2 capítulos que fala das sanções, ok?
Bom, a gente vai dar e já retornando. Lembrando, estudando hoje a resolução 449/2006, artigos 1, 2 e 3. Quem perdeu a primeira edição, a segunda edição Repeteco de CW, ok? Ou você pega na playlist. Lembrando que essa semana inteirinha é só introdução, ok? Na semana que vem, na próxima segunda-feira, a gente já entra no CW propriamente dito, tá? E já aprende os dois primeiros caracteres. Por enquanto, uma noção aí de sons, do áudio, range, audiofrequência, né? Mais alguns detalhes aí sobre a telegrafia, ok? Deixa eu dar boa tarde aí para o Cabral, para o Sérgio e para o Clóvis. Grande abraço a todos via internet, a todos via radiofrequência. Um ótimo ano aí para todos nós. Um feliz 2023. Bom, quem está vendo esse radiaço aí na frente é um Kenwood, ok? É um Kenwood TS 990S. Quem tiver uns $8.000, compra um radinho desse, tá bom? Só isso, hein? Só $8.000, ok? Você compra igualzinho a esse. Bom, vou dar um espaço e já retornando em legislação, ok?
From left to right, we have the power, we have the timer. Every button, if you hold the button, you go in the menu. So that's pretty easy. So you can set up a timer. Whoop, you still hold and it leaves. You can program this one. You have a dimmer, so you can dim your screen. You can also, if you push the button, you can still make different setting for different dim. So you program the button 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's going to do the setting you want. So usually I use setting number 2. So if I go here and I go setting number 2, whoops, sorry. I go, hold on. Okay, setting number 2. And you can go in which one is highlight. You just go with the arrow and you can add or retrieve or subtract some amounts and adjust whatever you like. So let's push that button. It's the PTT or the MUX if you want. You have the antenna tuner, which is very fast and it tuned very well. And you have the USB cabler. You can plug a USB stick and you can do your backup of your setting. And you can plug a remote keyboard. So you can just plug a keyboard. I got a wireless keyboard that I use. I plug it in, and then I can do my setting. Or you can do a digital mode with this keyboard. I didn't find anything in the manual or anything in the radio that will let you actually do CW with a keyboard. So you can do only digital mode, but it does not encode or decode CW. Anyway, I didn't find any. If you do escape, you always return to where you were, but let's keep the spectrum like this. All the other button, it's contextual. Let's say if you press dimmer, hold on. Okay, I'll put more brighter. Hold on a second. Depending on where you are, you will have a menu that will change here. So you see, there's a RX antenna in. I'm using RTR1A from DX Engineering. So I have my MFJ 1026 noise canceller that I'm using with a receiving antenna. And I got a lot of relay go on when I transmit with a 1 kilowatt. And actually, the relay will cut that out. And I'm using the RX out of the RTR1A to supply the signal to the radio, the main radio. And if you want to use the RX antenna, you just push here. Now I'm on antenna 1. I can have antenna 2, antenna 3, antenna 4, then come back to antenna 1. But usually I use my RX antenna, but when I'm going to transmit, I'm going to be on antenna 1. So that's pretty easy to set up. You have your mic gain, your Vox, to activate your Vox or not. You have your processor in and out, so you adjust the in first and then the out. Just push the button to have it. And you have the power and the carrier here. You have full break-in if you want, but it only works in CW. Your key speed, because for your keyer that's integrated, the delay, CW pitch, and the monitor if you want to monitor yourself when you transmit. So that's pretty common feature that you see on an HF. You have all your band, your mode here, LSB, AM, FM. If you want to go in USB, you just push twice the LSB button, but it should be on the default on the band you are when you select that band.
Deixa eu dar um retorno aqui pro Clóvis. Sabe que com uma boa antena, Clóvis, até HT 5, 6, 7 watts, você vai ouvir aí muita gente, ok? Você vai estar com HT ali na borrachinha, é uma condição. Se puser uma antena externa, boa, um pouco mais alta lá que o telhado, você já vai ouvir como um rádio grande, ok? A recepção praticamente igual. Né? Vai dar diferença na potência. Né? Para um HT 5, 7 watts ou um rádio maior de 50, 70 watts, né? Enfim. Mas para ouvir, você vai ouvir aí um monte de coisa, ok? Então, o que vai valer é uma antena externa legal, um bom ganho e um bom cabo coaxial, ok? Aí vai fazer toda a diferença. Mas é legal, né? Para começar já, é para começar a brincadeira, né? E lembrando, os amigos, que hoje iniciando o curso de CW, ok? Falando em iniciar a brincadeira, hoje iniciando aí o curso de CW, a primeira edição, aula introdutória, ok? E toda essa semana, só uma noção básica aí de sons, range, características dos sons, pausas, enfim, vários elementos aí da música, a gente vai estar usando nessa introdução, tá bom? Então fica conectado aí, que até sábado, né, só informações aí para iniciar o CW com um pouco de conhecimento, ok? E segunda-feira que vem, daqui uma semana, a gente começa para valer no CW, tá bom? Então quem está pensando em fazer o curso, né, dá tempo ainda de você fazer o curso com a gente, ok? Se não tinha resolvido, já resolveu, né? Faz o curso e boa sorte, tá bom? São 17 horas e 26 minutos. Estamos em legislação, ok? Hoje analisando resolução 449/2006.
I'm going to switch back to the normal mode. And you can switch from the main and the sub. So if you're on the sub, you change the sub with this one. And the same thing here. If you're on the main, you change with this one. You change the sub with the other one, the other VFO. You have the fine.
Assim, quanto a Rádio House, a vantagem é que tem nota fiscal, tem garantia. E qualquer problema ali do equipamento, ele troca, né? Já é uma loja que existe há muitos e muitos anos. É tradicional aí entre os radioamadores, né? Rádio House, lá em Indaiatuba, né? É isso aí. Tem já um know-how grande aí no nosso radioamadorismo, ok? É uma boa dica também, viu, Clóvis? Uma boa opção aí com garantia, nota, tudo certinho, né? 1 ano, né, de garantia no equipamento. Tá bom. Bom, pessoal que está ouvindo a gente, já retorna em legislação.
I want to play it back. Hold on. You see? You can hear the sound. So that's pretty easy. So you can do that, record on the USB stick as well. Like I said. All the other button, here you have your RIT, your XIT. So you want to, receive frequency, transmit frequency, have an offset from the main frequency. You can clear that out. You also have on the display, you have the power that you're using. Okay, so I'm using 100 watts to drive my amplifier, but I got the LLC connected as well. I also have my TX-EQ, which is there, okay? And you have the RX-EQ, which is off. And you have the date and the time, but you lose it when you activate your waterfall. So that's another thing. And you can select a different antenna for the sub VFO. You just go to sub and you change the antenna. So same thing, easy. You can select the RX or not. So the rest of the radio, what you have here, is actually settings for your AGC, set tracking, and common feature. You also have your RX in for your RX EQ. You can select. If you hold the button, you can set that up, and you can adjust it manually. Okay. Actually, if you buy one of those radio, you want to have a good setup. I have a Heil PR20, You can go on Bob's site, Ill Sound. I don't know if Isle or Ill, I'm sorry. My English sometimes playing some tricks on me. So I think it's Isle. So you go on his website and you check for TS990, and he will give you actually a very, very good setting that you will only need to fine tune for the TX after that. So that's my setting for my TX EQ, and people are saying that my audio are very, very good. So I'm very happy about that. So that's a good feature. You also have here for the sub, the filter selection, fine, voice, and lock, and here for the main. You have the AF for sub on the right here, and RF gain that you can adjust, and one for the main VFO. And from here, you have the noise blanker. You have the noise reduction. It's not as good as the FTDX 3000, but when I adjusted correctly, I did that, and it took me a little while. It's pretty close. So if you want to hear the difference, I'm going to take it off. You see noise reduction 1. So you have there the noise reduction. So it's doing a fine job, but not as much as the FTDX 3000. And if you want to activate the noise reduction of the noise blanker on the sub receiver, you have all the button here. You have noise blankers 2, noise blanker 1, noise reduction 1 and 2. So if you select it, it will use the setting that is set up on the pots there. So it's actually using the same one on the main band, and you can deactivate it. But I usually, that's a noise blanker. I'm gonna use now one. You also have a mute for the sub receiver, a mute for the main. You can have as well EGC setup. You have your auto notch, your manual notch, beat cancellation, all that kind of feature. The notch is there for the sub. So it's actually a pretty easy radio to operate, quite actually what an intuitive radio. So that's my first side of it. I've been at it for 2 weeks now, and I ran over the manual, and I was able to get everything I needed. Except it took me 2 or 3 days to get everything, to get the plug in the back, because there was only one plug that came with it. I don't know if I have the original box and everything, but I bought it used, so I don't know if the remote connector was in the box when you bought it new. I can't say for that, but I needed to find one to be able to connect the amplifier, and I needed the 13-pin DIN in the back to connect my PTT. I could have connected on the mic connector here, but I preferred to have it neat, and have less wire in the back as possible. Monitor, it will pop the monitor. You can also select the monitor from here. Okay, here you have the AGC. You can also select the AGC here, but you can use the mouse. Okay, let's put this. So you can also, it's a touchscreen, so you can also touchscreen if you like. Okay, but it's such a wonderful screen. I don't like to see fingerprint on it. So this is the AGC. You have the attenuator here. You can also use the mouse, okay, for the attenuator. You don't see it much on the meter, but you can actually hear the difference when you use it. So I was told that this was normal with SDR, okay?
Então, só para lembrar que essa é a lei máxima das telecomunicações, tá bom? É o marco introdutório à lei maior, que é a LGT, Lei Geral das Telecomunicações, que serve para todos que trabalham com radiofrequência, ok? Televisão, rádio, satélite, telefonia, celular, radioamadores, enfim. Tudo previsto aqui nessa Lei Geral das Telecomunicações, tranquilo? Bom, no artigo 3º eu falo o seguinte: o serviço de radioamador é o serviço de telecomunicações de interesse restrito, destinado ao treinamento próprio, intercomunicação e investigações técnicas, levadas a efeito por amadores, devidamente autorizados interessados na radiotécnica unicamente a título pessoal e que não visem qualquer objetivo pecuniário ou comercial. Então, nesse artigo 3º, a própria legislação fala dos objetivos. Como, né, você tem lá em cima, elencando o capítulo, fala dos objetivos, esse artigo 3º, né, retrata praticamente todos, ok? Quais são os objetivos do radioamador? O artigo 3º já fala, ó, serviço de telecomunicações, a gente fala aí com as antenas, através das antenas, né, melhor dizendo, com outros amigos, com outros estados, com outros países aí do planeta, ok? Então, telecomunicação pura, né? Nosso hobby trabalha com radiofrequência. Então, telecomunicação de interesse restrito. Por que restrito? Porque em todo o mundo, só nós, radioamadores, vamos usar essas frequências destinadas para nós, ok? Nenhum outro serviço pode utilizar. Se é um momento de emergência, alguma coisa de urgência, e tudo bem, mas, do contrário, só os radioamadores, né? Nós aqui no Brasil e todos os radioamadores do planeta vão ter autorização de uso dessas bandas e frequências, ok? Então, é só para nós, radioamadores. Tranquilo? Por isso que fala, né? Serviço de telecomunicações de interesse restrito, né? Restrito a nós, radioamadores. Depois, olha lá, ó, seguindo os objetivos. Destinado ao treinamento próprio, né? Você vai evoluindo, você vai treinando aí telegrafia, vai treinando outros modos de transmissão, de comunicação, vai treinando até um outro idioma, né? Por exemplo, inglês, né? Para fazer contatos com outros países, DX, né? Que seja alguma coisa básica, mas você vai fazer um treinamento, ok? Ou já sabe um pouco, né? Ou sabe muito, já conversa, enfim. Depois, destinado ao treinamento próprio, olha lá, intercomunicação e investigações técnicas. Então, essa intercomunicação, ou seja, nós, radioamadores de todo o planeta, nos comunicamos, né, entre nós, tem essa intercomunicação, ok? Já, né, num serviço restrito só para radioamadores, mas todo o planeta aí se comunica, tá bom? Investigações técnicas, né, o que a gente faz aí para testarmos uma antena, uma experiência com um acoplador, uma experiência com a carga não irradiante, uma experiência com um amplificador linear, ou um microfone novo, enfim. Né, tudo e qualquer tipo de experiência em cima do hobby significa investigações técnicas, ok? Pode ser aí uma antena aí um projeto novo, né, que você construiu, simples ou complexo, não importa. Então, investigações técnicas abrange tudo isso. Ó, na sequência, levadas a efeito por amadores, ou seja, né, feitas, executadas e praticadas por nós, radioamadores. Depois, ó lá, mais um objetivo. Devidamente autorizados. Ó lá. Mais um objetivo, você para fazer tudo isso, para ser radioamador, né, tem que fazer aquela provinha, aí você consegue o seu QR, consegue a sua licença, consegue o seu indicativo. Então, mais um dos objetivos aqui do nosso hobby, ok? Seguindo, depois da autorização, interessados na radiotécnica. Quando fala radiotécnica, né, se você tiver habilidade, você pode construir o seu equipamento. Você tem essa permissão, ok? Você pode comprar um rádio prontinho, na loja de uma marca aí famosa, ou, né, você conhecendo um pouco de eletrônica, tendo habilidade, você constrói seu rádio.
Bom, a gente vai dar um intervalo e já retornando, ok? Lembrando, hoje analisando artigos 1, 2 e 3, resolução 449/2006, ok? E já retornando na análise.
Let's put us in the center. It's very, very smooth, and I saw why recently. I noticed that this button here, where you put your finger, is actually turning on itself, and it's very smooth, like ball bearing type of turn, okay? So when you put your finger in, at the contrary to other radio, your finger doesn't, it glides, it doesn't move. The finger doesn't move, nothing move under the finger, it just stay there, and then the VFO is moving. As you can see, when I get out of the band, there's an indication on the display here. So this is cool. And it is set up for region 2, that's mean North America, band plan. So that's it for the VFO. Now let's start with the button right here. Those are the band switch, okay? So if you want to go on 80 meter, I'll switch on 80 meter. If I want to go back to 20 meter, I'll switch to 20 meter. Please remember that this radio goes up to VHF as well. So that is very nice. All mode VHF. Let's go back to 20 meter. And you can see I can select the band from there. I press enter. When I press enter, I can actually enter a frequency manually, set it up to VFO A or B, can clear it. I can also use the pad here to enter a frequency, okay? I can also clear it. Okay, there you go. Or I can use the mouse, okay? Whatever I like. And I can set up hertz, kilohertz, or megahertz. So if I want to set up, let's say, 14.2 megahertz, so it will do the setting for me like this. So that is very, very nice. We see that commonly on HF radio. Here you have the record button, so you can record, hold on. You can record what's on the air, okay? And you have an indication when it's recorded, also in the display. And you can play it back, okay? So it will play back directly on the air what you just recorded. If you push memory in, it will memorize the frequency you are on, and you can enter a name for that frequency, like a net or something, and then you can access it. It will show you, hold on. You see, you have the comments. You see the comments there, but it could have been a net name, and it would have shown right there. If you want to recall, you can click on it. Okay, so that's very useful. Or you can use memory read and get that memory recall by clicking on it. So that's very straightforward. Here you have the mode down button and you have the mode up, but you can use your mouse as well. Sometimes it's faster because this rig supports a lot of mode. You also have the filter down and filter up, okay, that you have here for the RX filter, as you can see on the display. So it has some preset for filters, but you can also manually, okay, zoom. Hold on a second. You can actually zoom. And if you put the mouse on it, you see there's a little square appearing at the end. When it does that, you can actually, hold on, I'm too wide, goes to 10,000 hertz. So you can actually select the filter that you want. So as you wish, okay? So that's very easy. If you go on the frequency like this, you can also use the shift button to shift the frequency, okay? And you can use the width here. So to do it manually with the knob, but I prefer to do it with the mouse. That's why I say using the mouse is very useful, to have the mouse as well as all the buttons that has on this radio. So that's a filter up, filter down, okay? So let's stay to that. So that is very easy. Then you have the DSP function, the noise reductor, noise blanker 1, noise blanker 2, auto notch filter. This button here is for a future option that will be available in an upgrade. You have binaural audio. This sounds more like a stereo effect. And if you push any of the DSP button here and leave your finger on it, it will pop up the DSP setting. Then you can actually adjust the noise blanker as you wish. So, and you can activate, disactivate, and see how it's fully integrated. I use the mouse, okay? I activate here, disactivate there. I can activate here, disactivate there. I can do this as well. I can do this as well, okay? So there's a lot of way to do things with this radio. You have the auto notch, noise blanker. You can select it all if you want, okay? And for the noise reductor, there's another place to do the setting. I will show you that in a few moments. Let's close that down. So you have one noise reductor, noise blanker 1, noise blanker 2, auto notch, and the binaural audio. At the bottom of the DSP, what you have here is the sub button, sub receiver. So you can activate the sub receiver. If you want to adjust the volume, go to the mute as I showed you before to go into the mixer. Then you can have A to B. Okay, so let's change it again. And B to A. Okay, I just touched the, there you go. So you can switch actually A and B. You have the TX that you can set up differently. Okay, so you can TX on one frequency and RX on the other one. And you have the same, which is the split button that do separate TX and RX as well. Okay. And you can also activate that into the menu directly.
A Anatel permite isso? Sim, permite. Tem na legislação rádios produzidos, confeccionados pelo próprio radioamador, sem fins lucrativos, ou seja, ele faz aquele equipamento para ele e utiliza, né, na estação dele esse equipamento para ter contato com outros amigos. Tem restrições? Tem, né? Esse equipamento tem que ter a banda ou as bandas destinadas à sua classe. Se você é classe C, né, naquele limite das bandas e potências permitidas para a classe C, ok? Se for classe B ou classe A, idem, né? Vai ter os limites de bandas, potências, segmentos, frequências para você falar. Então, sempre que você constrói um equipamento, ele tem que estar de acordo com essa regra, tá bom? Você não pode ser radioamador classe C e fazer um rádio para transmitir em 20 metros com 2 kW. Tá? Primeiro ele vai estar fora da banda permitida e fora da potência permitida aí para a sua classe, ok? Então você pode montar o seu equipamento, mas tem que estar de acordo, né, com as bandas e potências que você pode utilizar, ok? Depois fala o seguinte, unicamente a título pessoal, tá vendo? Pode até um amigo te ajudar na construção desse equipamento, mas isso é para o hobby, para o radioamadorismo. E depois fala o seguinte, ó, e que não visem qualquer objetivo pecuniário ou comercial. Então, o que é isso? Pecuniário, dinheiro, ok? Então você não pode ter nenhum objetivo no rádio, de fazer alguma coisa pensando em vender, comercializar. Tá? Comércio fora do rádio, tudo bem. No rádio, na radiofrequência, é proibido. Né? Falar, tem um rádio aqui para eu vender, que eu fiz, que eu montei. Né? Eu fiz 10 unidades, estou vendendo aqui por R$2.000. Não pode. Tá? Então, totalmente proibido qualquer tipo de comércio no radioamadorismo. Eu falei, fora tudo bem. Vai numa feirinha, num ponto de encontro, numa confraternização de radioamadores, né? Pode ter lá um espaço, né, para o pessoal comercializar rádios, vender, trocar, tudo bem, mas na radiofrequência é proibido, tá bom? E o último item do artigo 3º, olha lá, que não visem qualquer objetivo pecuniário ou comercial. Né? Você não pode ter em mente dinheiro aqui na radiofrequência ou fazer comércio. E outra coisa, não só de rádio, né? Eu tenho uma quitanda, eu falo, ó, a banana prata tá R$1,50 o quilo, né? Quem quiser aproveitar, eu entrego motoboy. Eu posso fazer isso? Não posso. É comércio, todo jeito é comércio. Esse comércio não é necessariamente só de equipamentos. Pode ser comercializar produtos. Eu vendo aí gêneros alimentícios. Olha, o feijão hoje está na promoção, tá R$5 o quilo. Exemplo, né? E daí para frente. Olha, tá vendendo um carro aqui, assim, legal, tá inteiraço. Portanto, não pode, né? Todo e qualquer tipo de comércio na radiofrequência é proibido, ok? Tem esse artigo 3º, agora você entende melhor lá. Quando você lê, né, você foi destrinchando, né, cada parte dele, agora você entende todo o artigo. Então, lendo novamente, olha como fica. O serviço de radioamador é o serviço de telecomunicações de interesse restrito. Nós já explicamos o que significa. Destinado ao treinamento próprio, já explicamos. Intercomunicação e investigações técnicas, falamos, né? levadas a efeito por radioamadores, ou seja, só nós, né, em todo o planeta, radioamadores devidamente autorizados, né, fala da formalização, né, você tem que ter o seu COER, a sua licença, vai ter o seu indicativo, então, é o formalismo da lei, tá aqui, ó, devidamente autorizados. Depois, interessados na radiotécnica, unicamente a título pessoal, ou seja, né, você como radioamador, visando o seu conhecimento, seu aprofundamento aí na matéria, a sua evolução como radioamador, ok? Então, só a título pessoal, você é radioamador. E por último, né, que não visem qualquer objetivo pecuniário ou comercial. Explicamos, então, você vê que o artigo 3º, né, quando você destrincha e procura entender, né, pedacinho por pedacinho, você tem um entendimento bem diferente. Você lendo uma paulada só, você não entende tudo isso. Agora, você vai explicando, destrinchando, você... Opa, esse artigo fala um monte de coisa, né? Em 3 linhas, né, tem um universo de possibilidades aí sobre o radioamadorismo. Tá bom? Bom, amanhã a gente vai entrar no capítulo das definições.
Agora são 17 horas 51 minutos. E lembrando, hoje analisando resolução 449/2006, artigos 1, 2 e 3. Também tivemos CW. Quem perdeu a primeira aula, na playlist você pega aí toda essa parte introdutória, ok? Lembrando, essa semana inteirinha, até sábado, só uma introdução ao CW. Falando de sons, pausas, elementos da música, audiofrequência, enfim, né, uma série de informações aí para você, quando começar no CW, a semana que vem, né, aprender aí realmente 2 caracteres, ok? E ter essa noção básica de tudo isso, tranquilo? Então, quem perdeu a primeira aula, pega na playlist CW Aula 1. E vamos em frente. 17 horas e 53 minutos. Oportunidade com boa tarde.
What I can do is show you what I did. So there's filters, the noise gate. The noise gate by default work very well. What it does, it actually shut down the audio into the microphone when you don't speak. So if you're in SSB having a QSO, if you pause a little, you don't hear the amplifier fans in the back because you actually, this will shut it down. This will actually cut off the background noise between your words. So that is the noise gate, and I use it. There's a compressor setting that I don't understand very well, how to set it up. There's too much setting for me. And there is a limiter inside as well. There's a EQ. The EQ is fascinating because you can actually change the bandwidth that your EQ affects. By default, it's 2 kilohertz there. It's too wide for me. So I did this adjustment and save it as a profile. There's a different profile for the EQ as there is a profile for the radio setup as well, okay? Then you have the AGC for the mic, and you have the clipper, whatever it is, and you can actually export your setting and re-import it. So you can have a setting for DX, a setting for RADIO. That's where you would do that. You can activate, deactivate the TXEQ by pushing it fast and a momentary to get into the menu. Then you have the IQ, okay? So you can activate recording IQ. That's mean recording the signal and all the information as well as the audio. Then you have the transverter. You have the step from 1 hertz, 10, 50, 100 hertz. I would have liked to have 1 kilohertz. Maybe there's a setting somewhere, but I didn't find it yet. And there's auto. You can zoom in, zoom out into the pan adapter, into the spectrum, sorry. And you have the RIT air, the XIT, the RX2, and this can be used for the sub-DFO or other function, okay? So this covers the main button on the radio. Now, let's go in the Expert SDR software. Currently, it is in the MB1, menu, MB1 view, if you like. But you can switch into the Expert SDR software where you would have more settings directly, but it's quite small. But if you have an external screen, it can be very useful. There's a little bit more option on the window. You can save profile here, and you can recall profile from here, and you can update the profile, remove profile. That's for the old radio setup, excluding the TX-EQ that has its own profile. And if you click here, you switch back to the MB1 style. It took me a little while to find that out, because every time I switched to Expert SDR2, I was stuck there. I had to reset the default, but then I figure it out, and then you're back to the normal MB1 view. So I prefer that as the other. Look more integrated like this. And if you click here, you will access other setups. So I won't cover it all since it's very complicated, but as you can see, my SDR has got an IP address in my LAN. It is connected to the LAN. And you can select the scope bandwidth as well here. You can select the PC mic and a few things, okay? So I won't go through it all. This is the device. So with the device, you have the VAC, okay? Receiver 1, receiver 2, RX1, RX2. You have the VUX setup. You have the DSP setup. And it took me a while to find out that there's a menu here, and then you select the DSP, and then you can have thresholds for noise reduction and ultra-notch filter, noise blanker, everything is there, okay? Then you have the TX. The TX, you can set up the bandwidth, and you can transmit up to 10 kilohertz, okay? Mine it sets to 5 for RAGCHU, and you can, set up different things here. So we won't go through today. Here you have the CW external. You have the external control. You activate it. You can actually control the external connector control in the back. So you have pins you can select. I don't use that. But for the PA,
(7h56) e hoje, ponto de encontro dos radioamadores, Pacaembu. Quem quiser comparecer, 17h30 em diante, lá no estacionamento, ok? Exatamente, toda segunda-feira, né, é um dia fora aí do comum, né? Normalmente é aos domingos, porém, a característica é essa mesma, né? Toda segunda-feira à noite, 19h30, encontro de radioamadores no Pacaembu. Lembrando, não só radioamadores, ok? Você que é coruja, você que é PX, você que curte o radioamadorismo, pretende ser radioamador, pode comparecer, ok? Não tenha medo, ninguém morde, hein? Tudo amigo, tá bom? Todos amigos, conversam, né? Numa boa aí, não tem perigo, ok? Pode comparecer lá que são todos amigos aí da gente, ok? Então, hoje, às 19h30 em diante, Pacaembu. E lembrando também, dá tempo de você fazer o curso de CW com a gente. Caso você queira fazer promoção classe B, embarque aí nessa nossa canoa, que não é furado, ok? E segue com a gente. Serão 4 meses de aulas, janeiro, fevereiro, março, abril. São 7 turmas e várias opções. Você pode fazer via radiofrequência, você pode fazer via live, via internet, aí no YouTube, ok? Ou você pode fazer também via playlist. Tá? Essa última opção, para quem não tem tempo aí para fazer nos horários de aula. Tranquilo? 5 horas primeira edição, 17 horas segunda edição. Então, escolhe aí um horário, começa para valer na próxima segunda-feira, ok? Toda essa semana somente introdução, né? Falando de sons, de pausas e vários elementos da música. Tranquilo? Positivo. Os corujas podem participar, né, Clóvis? Por que não, né? Corujas, corujinhas e corujões. Todos convidados, ok? Então, vamos lá. Oportunidade aos amigos com boa noite.
very nice. And there you can add the DX spot. Okay, I will check it out and I will show you the setting for that in a few moments. You have the waterfall. You can stop it in TX, or you can see it while you transmit. I like to see it when I transmit. That's very nice. You have the grid. You have the filter. You can show on the waterfall background. You can select an image and adjust the transparency right here. So like I did with the VA2 PD in the screen. And then you have the power meter set up. You have the CAT. You can control RX1, RX2 using ECAT or OmniRig. You have the cPanel. This is a external controller that you can program. There's some feature as well that I didn't go through yet. Expert Sync, CW Skimmer that you can adjust. You have shortcuts, IQ Recorder. You can set up the directory for that. Open over there and watch it if you would like.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we've taken pride in with the 7800 and as well as the 7850 is two completely identical receivers.
And so two receivers at once, and I assume you can put any two bands on here?
Any bands that you want. You can 160 to 10, 6, if you want to listen to a 6 meter opening while you're sitting there rag chewing on 10, 15, 20. The performance on 80 and 160 is very impressive.
And you can have two signals in the same bands on the two scopes at once?
Yes, sir, you can.
Okay.
And that's one of the nice things about the new 7850 is you can have both scopes, one for your main band and one for your sub band simultaneously on the screen.
Now, that is nice. Now, the 7800 didn't have that, did it?
No, it did not have that capability.
And I'm also noticing that the scope here seems to be running a little faster than it runs on my 7700.
It runs a lot faster.
So they made some nice improvements on this. Of course, the gold accents on everything on it really makes this radio stand out. And like you say, there's not going to be many of them around. So I'm going to ask you, and I'm sure this radio does it too. There was a recent upgrade in the firmware for the 7700 and the 7800. Is this radio got that capability, and have they expanded on it some?
With the 7800, we got the remote base operation server built into the radio. That's in the 7850. The waterfall. Mm-hmm. Now with the dual receivers and dual scopes, you have the dual waterfalls on it. So there's a lot more horsepower under the hood here to play around with.
Well, the one thing you mentioned there is the remote control server built into it. You know, that's what the firmware added to my 7700. You just plug a LAN cable back here in the back, plug it in your network. You don't need a computer in the shack at all. This rig will handle it by itself. And I have thoroughly enjoyed that on my rig. And I know anybody who gets one of these is might as well set that up. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's so easy to set up.
Oh yeah, and I'm excited to see what the full-blown radio looks like. The one that I brought here, George, is one of the prototypes that we saw photos from the Tokyo Ham Fair, mm-hmm. then Friedrichshafen, and then at the National Convention in the UK. So this one's been on the road a lot more recently and not on the engineer's desk. So mm-hmm. we're playing around with a prototype right now. Okay, George, you got to show Tommy.
All right, let's do it. Oh, must be my radio.
Nice one, George. When I wasn't looking, you programmed that in, huh?
Yeah, I didn't know how to do that much with it. That was pretty quick. Came right up. I'd say probably just slightly faster boot speed than what I'm used to on the 7700.
Well,
and it's doing a lot more.
Oh, yeah. And we're out here on your hangout here. Let's get a little bit of what we're listening to right now.
Oh, we're listening to some guys on 3850 right now.
Ok. Esse de vermelho é o Rei Novak. E os rádios copiados são os menores, né? Esse bitelão não tem cópia. São rádios HTs, acho que tem um modelo da Icon, foi copiado lá atrás, faz tempo já. O ICV-8000 também tinha uma cópia muito parecida, ok? Enganou muitos radioamadores aí. Não lembro todos os rádios, mas saiu uma leva de rádios realmente piratas, ok? E hoje eu não sei se tem algum modelo sendo copiado, acho que não, hein? Mas teve um ano, alguns anos que chegava no mercado alguns rádios piratas, ok? Igual, né, o modelo original da ICO, mas era, né, totalmente pirateado, totalmente feito na China, igual o nome, né? Não tinha a mínima vergonha de pôr tudo igual, né? Tá bom. Tiveram alguns HTs e o ICV-8000, se eu não me engano, da ICO também era copiado, ok? Mas esse não, né? Esse é uma edição de 50 anos da ICO. Esse é uma paulada, um rádio muito bonito. E caro também, né? Esse, para copiar, tem que ser muito bom. E vai grana, né? Tentar copiar um rádio desse, olha, esse ninguém copia, hein? Pode até copiar, né? Mas muito trabalho, né? Fazer um equipamento desse não é brincadeira. E olha que rádio bonito, hein? Isso é rádio para mais de metro. E tudo dourado, né? Edição limitada no mundo inteiro, né? Foram para os Estados Unidos um lote grande lá para as lojas, Europa, Japão, né? Então, quem comprou, quem não comprou, né, pode comprar exatamente igual, mas não tem os botões dourados, na lateral também é diferente. Esse tem um visual totalmente inusitado, ok? Só edição limitada mesmo, né? Coisa chique. Radiaço, né? Bom, oportunidade aos amigos com boa noite.
Which is a 6 kilohertz.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now we'll go to 3 kilohertz.
And you can hear it starting to take effect around here.
Yes. Now we'll go to the 1.2. There's a new function, though, that came up that was not there on the other ones, and it's the ADJ.
Yeah.
From playing around with it, it's a roofing filter calibration. From 0%.
Oh, yeah.
To 100%. Now, this is an interesting button. You can either go default,
mm-hmm.
but cal.
Yeah.
Now, I push and hold it. It goes through a process, and you can see on the S meter something's happening.
And it decided the best spot was 34% here.
Yes. Now, be interesting to see in a crowded band in a contest what it will do, but I know K3LR is not going to let me monkey around with a radio during a contest.
No, probably not. And he would be wise for that, right?
We just hit the exit to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned earlier when I did this the last time, roofing filter at 1.2, but the first filter is set at 3.6.
Right. Yeah.
So let me go back to default.
Yeah.
The goal is as you get narrower, so that's a 1.8, and then we toggle that to a 1.2.
Mm-hmm. And these are in series. The roofing filter comes first, and then it's the regular filter, correct?
When we introduced the 7800,
mm-hmm.
the brochures always talked about the first IF filter.
Yeah.
And that is the true name of what it is. But ham slang, it's a roofing filter.
Yeah. So the other filters out here, the main filters, those are actually after the roofing filter.
Yes, they're actually with the 7800, 7700, 7600 in this radio. It's dual conversion. Mm-hmm. So the first IF or the roofing filter is your up conversion. Then your second set of filters are going to be in your second conversion, which is tied to the DSP. Okay, George, still some of the things that feel familiar with you on your 7700 is a bandwidth change where you can dial in what you want. When you're done, you click it out.
Right.
When you make adjustments, you have both of them together as IF shift.
Mm-hmm.
Or when you move them in opposite directions. The filter still stays at 3 kilohertz wide, but we're showing here 1.7, and in the audio you can hear it.
Yeah.
and we can shift it. So that's a 1.6 filter that way.
And you can center it where you want it on the frequency to cut out the adjacent signals.
Right. Very quick and easy. Push button clear. Same circuitry for the Digicel, the APF, the notch filter. All those things come into play.
So you mentioned earlier about the dual band scopes on there. How would we go about looking at that?
Well, we've got the soft keys here with the menu selection right above it on the screen. We've got the M/S dual. You push and hold it. But right now, we have no activity on the sub band. The reason why, we've got it turned off. When we hit dual watch, that activates the sub band, and now you have signals on both.
Okay.
Now, while on your 7700, you have the volume control and RF gain, this one is for the main band, this is for the sub band.
Right.
So you have identical controls in the same position.
Just like you would expect.
Okay, one of the cool things about the dual watch is I go ahead and I turn it off, the audio goes away, you see the signal on the band scope goes away. If I push and hold dual watch, it synchronizes the two.
Okay, so now I can move up and down from that spot.
Yes. And then the smaller knob takes care of the sub band. You have a tuning step control for it. So right now we're at 1 hertz tuning resolution.
So very precise.
So very precise. I can come to a higher rate.
Oh yeah, make huge steps. So this one's displaying all the way down to 1 hertz.
Yes. And you can turn it off by pushing and holding the TS button, and that takes them both to 10.
So that's pretty slick. So say I'm sitting here operating on the main band, but I hear something or somebody over on the sub band I want to talk to. How would I do that?
Well, right here we have the main band lit up. All we have to do is click over to the sub band.
And now I'll be transmitting over there.
Yes, sir. And you'll see not only this indication to say sub lights up, but you also see the characters on the screen light up and these go dark. So when I go main, I can do that. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is hitting the change button, and it flips them
just
both.
swaps them. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
That allows you for the tuning knobs you want to use. When you hit the change, it's going to use your main tuning knob. When we flip them over, we come sub. Now this is my tuning knob all the time. This is my main tuning knob, but now I transmit on this side.
Yeah.
As I was mentioning on this side, where these two controls, main and sub, you have noise reduction and noise blanker, main and sub. Your AGC variable, noise reduction, noise blanker, these buttons turn them on and off. Here's your adjustments for them. Your AGC control, but here's for the sub. So everything from this point is duplicated, but main and sub.
Very cool.
When you come over to this side of the radio from the top down, we have main and sub for your twin passband tuning, for your Digicel and notch, main and sub, RIT control, transmit, and CW pitch.
Yep.
But then down below, you've got your tuning step controls for each individual, speech for each one, or locks.
Wow.
So if you're using this waiting for, say you're rag tuning on 20 and you're waiting to see if the band opens up on 40 or 80, you can lock this one so you don't accidentally bump it off frequency. It's going to stay there.
Right. Just turn up a little bit of the RF gain there.
Why would you want to do that?
So I don't have to listen to the noise. I can just listen to the signals I want to hear.
But you can also go this route with it.
Well, true. I can do that.
And that's one thing you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I noticed there's some difference here in the noise reduction. I've noticed it seems like if I go way on over with it, it's doing things it couldn't have done before. It's like it's...
Agora são 18 horas, 15 minutos. E a gente lembra os amigos, próximo domingo, ponto de encontro dos radioamadores, Hermelino Matarazzo. Quem não conhece, anota o endereço. Parque Municipal, Hermelino Matarazzo, Rua Abel Tavares, 1542, primo, quinto, quarto, segundo. Próximo domingo, dia 8, Hermelino Matarazzo. Quem não conhece, dá um pulinho, vai conhecer. Vai ser o domingo inteiro de confraternização. Sempre tem um churrasquinho, um refrigerante. E vai até umas 16 horas aproximadamente, ok? É o dia inteiro ali de bate-papo, negócios, né? Tem a feirinha de eletroca, rádios, antenas, fontes e um monte de outras coisas, ok? É bem legal, é bem interessante. É um lugar bem bonito. Quem não conhece, vale a pena. Também todos convidados, ok? PX, corujas, futuros radioamadores, todos poderão comparecer. Tranquilo? Então, Hermelino Matarazzo, Parque Municipal, Rua Abel Tavares, 1542. E vamos lá, vamos prestigiar o radioamadorismo. Oportunidade com boa noite.
And this is still the same as what you've got on your radio. Got to go to, so we're at 3.526. I'm going to bring this to 3.520 and 352.
And so you're just making it 5 kilohertz wide there.
Right. We're going from 3.52 3.520 to 3.525. So here's a guy sending here.
So that's 5 kilohertz of bandwidth that we're looking at right here.
Yes. But now what we can do with the mouse,
just choose one of them.
now we're still at 3 kilohertz. We're in sideband. Let me go ahead and go to CW mode. That's 1.2 kilohertz. There's 500. There's 250.
Wow. I don't hear any of these guys over here on the edges.
George, what we're going to show here is using the regular band scope. We've got it clicked in for the sub band, and we're running in dual watch with split.
Okay.
So in this configuration, my receive side is over here, my transmit side's over here, but I'm listening to both. So we're hearing this guy over here.
Yeah.
But what I'm moving right now is my transmitter with the subband. So I'm transmitting over here. So if I'm transmitting all the way over here, that's a pretty wide pileup.
Right. Yeah.
And how we would hear that is we'd turn down our receiver, and here's the other side of the pileup.
Yeah. If you could kind of figure out where he was working and how far he was moving each time, you could probably just pick you out a good frequency and just click on it and you're there when he comes to it.
Yes. One of the things that I notice on the 7850 real quick for memory management is the devices that you can use.
Yeah, I see there's an SD card slot here now.
Yes, we had the compact flash in the 7800.
Yeah.
USB for the 7700.
Right.
And now we have an SD card on the 7850.
But it says USB right here beside it. I guess that's for the USB ports in the rear. You can know that they're being used.
I believe so. But in the memory, you can either use the SD or the USB for memory.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And there you go, George. You firm up. So there's firmware updates. A lot of the settings are still the same. Menu system for level, accessories, display, time, and others.
Yep.
There's your network.
Right. And you got multiple users.
Multiple users, all your UDP information, your network controls. Okay, George, this is also something that's similar as what's on your 7700, and that's for your sideband receive high pass, low pass. We can set it up for the tonal quality that you want.
Yeah.
You can either just do it with bass reduction, increase it, treble,
Oh, yeah.
or we can come here, roll off.
And just set your own bandpass there. Not that I really do a lot of contesting or de-expeditions or anything like that, but, you know, I still like comfort in my receive audio is if I can have.
Deixa eu dar boa noite para o Oliveira. Grande abraço, hein, Oliveira? Obrigado pelos votos. PY1, Papa Charlie. O único radioamador que tem um indicativo informatizado, né? É isso aí. PY1, PC. Tudo em paz, tranquilo. Como foi de virada de ano? Que seja um ano aí maravilhoso, tá bom, Oliveira? Muita saúde, muita paz e prosperidade pro amigo e familiares, tá bom? É isso aí. Para quem não sabe, Oliveira tá lá na cidade maravilhosa, hein? Rio de Janeiro. E maravilha, hein? Já pegou umas ondas hoje, né, Oliveira? Pegou umas ondas lá no mar e agora umas ondas no rádio, né? O Oliveira é surfista duplamente, né? Você surfa lá nas ondas do mar e aqui na radiofrequência. É um pouquinho lá, um pouquinho aqui, né, Oliveira? É isso aí. Então tá aí. Um bom ano pro amigo e seja bem-vindo. Olha que radiaço na tela, hein? Edição especial de 50 anos da AICO, hein? Isso é rádio para mais de metro. Radiaço. Bom, oportunidade aos amigos com boa noite.
Bringing that 7850 with you. Boy, what a nice radio. You know, I'm looking forward to hearing some of these on the air.
Mais uma pitadinha desse rádio que vale a pena, hein? Esse rádio, a gente não enjoa de ver características do equipamento, né? Especial.
Well, Ray, it's nice to see you back in Mississippi again.
And I'm glad to be back here and bringing a few toys.
I see you've got 50th anniversary here on your shirt.
Yes.
Olha lá o indicativo dele, ô Clóvis. Do Ray Novak, quer ver?
Well, Ray, it's nice to see you back in Mississippi again.
And I'm glad to be back here and bringing a few toys.
November 9,
I see
Juliette
you've
Alpha.
got 50th anniversary here on your shirt.
Yes, sir.
And this radio's got 50th anniversary on it too.
Yes, it does. Yes, I'm dressed in red for December.
So you brought this new rig here, this ICOM IC 7850.
Yes, sir. It's been actually kind of fun for the last couple of hours playing around with it and comparing it to what you're used to with your 7700.
It has been, and I've learned a few things. A lot of it is very similar to the to my 7700, and I assume the 7800s. But there are a few new things on here that tickle my fancy, I would say. There's only going to be a limited number of these, from what I understand. This is serial number 000
Of 150, yes.
150. So how many of these do you think we'll get in the U.S.?
We're trying to negotiate for as many as we possibly can, but it's looking like we're going to have 40 units for the U.S.
Outra coisa, ele recebe diretamente lá da Icon do Japão, tá bom, Oliveira? Todos os grandes eventos ele comparece, ok? Dayton e mais alguns famosos nos Estados Unidos, Hanover, outros, né, na Europa, no Japão, ele também comparece, ok? Na Feira de Tóquio, né, normalmente no final de agosto. Dayton vai ser agora, né, em final de maio, ok? Então, ele tá em todas, hein? Esse cara, ele devora o manual, né, e qualquer pergunta de um lançamento, ele manja tudo, ok? Tudo e mais um pouco, né? O cara é crânio, né? Esse cara é muito inteirado. Bom, para receber da Icon lá do Japão, o que ele recebe, tem que estudar, né? Tem que ser bom, porque senão ele não seria contratado, né? Mas ele manja aí tudo e mais um pouco, né? E nessa edição limitada desse rádio, também, né? Ele comentou numa outra entrevista o que ele estudou, né, sobre esse equipamento quando foi lançado, ok? Edição limitada do IC 7850. É rádio para mais de metro. Bom, oportunidade aos amigos com boa noite.
The performance on 80 and 160 is very impressive.
And you can have two signals in the same bands on the two scopes at once.
Yes, sir, you can.
Okay.
And that's one of the nice things about the new 7850 is you can have both scopes, one for your main band and one for your sub band simultaneously on the screen.
Now that is nice. Now the 7800 didn't have that, did it?
No, it did not have that capability.
And I'm also noticing that the scope here seems to be running a little faster than it runs on my 7700.
It runs a lot faster.
So they made some nice improvements on this. Of course, the gold accents on everything on it really makes this radio stand out. And like you say, there's not going to be many of them around. So I'm going to ask you, and I'm sure this radio does it too. There was a recent upgrade in the firmware for the 7700 and the 7800. Is this radio got that capability, and have they expanded on it some?
With the 7800, we got the remote base operation server built into the radio. That's in the 7850, the waterfall. Mm-hmm. Now with the dual receivers and dual scopes, you have the dual waterfalls on it. So there's a lot more horsepower under the hood here to play around with.
Well, the one thing you mentioned there is the remote control server built into it. You know, that's what the firmware added to my 7700. You just plug a LAN cable back here in the back, plug it in your network. You don't need a computer in the shack at all. This rig will handle it by itself. And I have thoroughly enjoyed that on my rig. And I know anybody who gets one of these is might as well set that up. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's so easy to set up.
Oh yeah, and I'm excited to see what the full-blown radio looks like. The one that I brought here, George, is one of the prototypes that we saw photos from the Tokyo Ham Fair, mm-hmm. then Friedrichshafen, and then at the National Convention in the UK. So this one's been on the road a lot more recently and not on the engineer's desk. So mm-hmm. we're playing around with a prototype right now. Okay, George, you got to show Tommy.
All right, let's do it. Oh, must be my radio.
Nice one, George. When I wasn't looking, you programmed that in, huh?
Yeah, I didn't know how to do that much with it. That was pretty quick. Came right up. I'd say probably just slightly faster boot speed than what I'm used to on the 7700.
Well,
and it's doing a lot more.
Oh, yeah. And we're out here on your hangout here, and let's get a little bit of what we're listening to right now.
Oh, we're listening to some guys on 3850 right now. Most of them up in the, I guess, the northern Midwest, I think. But there could be some, some folks out of the Northeast in there as well.
Well, one of the things that you do when you bring up a radio is you start setting it up for your filtering and that.
Yeah.
Just like on your 7700, your filtering is located up here by the twin passband tuning.
Mm-hmm.
So we can toggle through our filtering. That's what you're already normal to.
And we're seeing the bandwidth change right here as to how wide a bandwidth we're watching.
Yes, sir. Now when I push and hold.
Okay, yeah, that brings it up where you can actually get a visual representation of it there.
Now we've got the filter set for soft on the shape, but we can come here and go sharp.
Deixa eu passar uma informação para os amigos, que em breve estará acontecendo uma feira na região sul de São Paulo, ok? Assim que os amigos confirmarem, eu passo o endereço e referências, tudo certinho, os horários, ok? Esse novo ponto de encontros vai ser na região de Santo Amaro, ok? Santo Amaro, zona sul de São Paulo. Estão lá em negociações, tá bom? Quando baterem o martelo, eles me avisam e eu aviso os amigos, ok? Então vai ser mais um referencial mais um ponto de encontro dos radioamadores. Está programado para ser aos domingos também, ok? Como outros que já acontecem aí aos domingos. E o ponto forte vai ser o dia inteiro, né? Vai ter aquela feirinha de eletroca, bate-papo, churrasquinho, refrigerante, enfim, né? Mais um point aí dos radioamadores. Outro evento que vamos ter agora em setembro, está longe, eu já vou cantar bola. Esse está confirmado, ok? Vai ser no segundo domingo de setembro, em Capela do Alto. Tá? Mesmo esquema, todos convidados, radioamadores, PX, corujas, simpatizantes do hobby, futuros radioamadores. Então anota aí. Segundo domingo de setembro, Capela do Alto. Ele vai passar mais algumas informações e eu passo para os amigos. Tem normalmente churrasco, tem sorteio de rádios, aquela feirinha tradicional, bate-papo, tem um monte de coisa, é muito legal, hein? Vale a pena, ok? Quem nunca foi, vale a pena conhecer, ok? Se eu não me engano, vai ser o 23º encontro de radioamadores Capela do Alto, tá bom? Então deixa aí anotado, segundo domingo de setembro. Tá? Até lá vou passando aí um monte de informações sobre o evento, tá bom? 18h31. Oportunidade com boa noite.
The best spot was 34% here.
Yes. Now, be interesting to see in a crowded band in a contest what it will do, but I know K3LR is not going to let me monkey around with a radio during a contest.
No, probably not. And he would be wise for that, right?
We just hit the exit to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned earlier when I did this the last time, roofing filter at 1.2, but the first filter is set at 3.6.
Right. Yeah.
So let me go back to default.
Yeah.
The goal is as you get narrower, so that's a 1.8, and then we toggle that to a 1.2.
Mm-hmm. And these are in series. The roofing filter comes first, and then it's the regular filter, correct?
When we introduced the 7800,
Mm-hmm.
the brochures always talked about the first IF filter.
Yeah.
And that is the true name of what it is. But ham slang, it's a roofing filter.
Yeah. So the other filters out here, the main filters, those are actually after the roofing filter.
Yes, they're actually with the 7800, 7700, 7600 in this radio. It's dual conversion. Mm-hmm. So the first IF or the roofing filter is your up conversion. Then your second set of filters are going to be in your second conversion, which is tied to the DSP. Okay, George, still some of the things that feel familiar with you on your 7700 is a bandwidth change where you can dial in what you want. When you're done, you click it out.
Right.
When you make adjustments, you have both of them together as IF shift.
Mm-hmm.
Or when you move them in opposite directions. The filter still stays at 3 kilohertz wide, but we're showing here 1.7, and in the audio you can hear it.
Yeah.
And we can shift it. So that's a 1.6 filter that way.
And you can center it where you want it on the frequency to cut out the adjacent signals.
Right. And then very quick and easy, push button clear. Same circuitry for the Digicel, the APF, the notch filter. All of those things come into play.
So you mentioned earlier about the dual band scopes on there. How would we go about looking at that?
Well, we've got the soft keys here with the menu selection right above it on the screen. We've got the M/S dual. You push and hold it. But right now we have no activity on the sub band. The reason why, we've got it turned off. When we hit dual watch, that activates the sub band, and now you have signals on both.
Okay.
Now, while on your 7700, you have the volume control and RF gain. This one is for the main band. This is for the sub band.
Right.
So you have identical controls in the same position.
Just like you would expect.
Okay, one of the cool things about the dual watch is I go ahead and I turn it off, the audio goes away, you see the signal on the band scope goes away. If I push and hold dual watch, it synchronizes the two.
Okay, so now I can move up and down from that spot.
Yes. And then the smaller knob takes care of the sub band. You have a tuning step control for it. So right now we're at 1 hertz tuning resolution.
So very precise.
So very precise. I can come to a higher rate.
Oh yeah, make huge steps. So this one's displaying all the way down to 1 hertz.
Yes. And you can turn it off by pushing and holding the TS button. And that takes them both to 10.
So that...
Eu diria que a antena vai ser o grande diferencial. Tá bom, Clóvis. Uma 3 vezes 5 oitavos. Pode ser nacional, importada. Elas são muito, muito interessantes. Né? O ganho é bem alto, um bom cabo. Né? Você já está querendo pegar um RG213 ou RGC213, né? Conectores aí bem montados, nossa, vai ficar excelente. O que eu falei, né? A recepção vai ficar um espetáculo, ok? E o limite vai ser a potência. Tá? Mas com a antena e com esse cabo, né, numa altura boa aí, você vai falar com muita, muita gente, ok? E no futuro, né, pegando um rádio mais potente, vai estar com toda a parte aí da antena prontinha, né? Mais importante, eu acho essa montagem aí que você está fazendo nesse ajuste, né, de antena, cabo aí excelentes, né, primordial. Né? Até se você não trocar de rádio, né, você vai falar com muita gente aí, mesmo 5 watts você chega longe. Né? Só que com uma boa antena, né? E essa Steel Brasil é uma boa antena, ok? Uma excelente antena. Né? Pode ser uma 3 vezes 5 oitavos da Nagoya, da Comet, da MA6000, VS300, Diamond, né? Ou as nacionais, Brasília 3, enfim. Então, o rendimento da Steel Brasil é exatamente igual às demais nacionais e importadas, ok? É o mesmo ganho, não tem diferença. E o rádio, depois no futuro, você pega um rádio aí maior, com mais potência, mas para começar está excelente. 7 watts aí e uma boa antena fazem toda a diferença. Bom, para quem está vendo esse rádio aí na tela, ok? É o IC7850. Esse especificamente é uma edição limitada da Icon, ok? Tudo dourado, o rádio é lindo, lindo, lindo. Né? Quem comprou, comprou. Quem não comprou, ficou a ver navios. Porque foi uma quantidade para os Estados Unidos, né? Uma quantidade para a Europa, uma quantidade lá para o próprio Japão, ok? Mas, como edição limitada, cada rádio tem identificação, número, ok? De um lote, vamos por aí, vai. De 5.000 rádios, esse é o 0001. Tá? Acho que no começo do vídeo eles mostraram, né, o número de série dessa edição limitada, ok? Eu não lembro quantos rádios foram feitos, porém, né, hoje quem comprou, comprou, quem não comprou, a não ser que compre de alguém que não queira mais, né? Quem tem um radiaço desse provavelmente não vende, mas coisa para guardar a vida inteira, né? Mesmo que você compre rádios mais modernos, mas esse rádio é único, né? O visual dele eu acho, o rádio mais bonito até hoje confeccionado, ok? Eu, se tivesse um rádio desse, não venderia por preço nenhum, hein? Mas provavelmente você encontra, né, alguém vendendo, vai saber, né? Então tá aí, 18 horas 39 minutos. Oportunidade com boa noite.
But look at right in this area.
Yeah, I see at least 3 different signals there, maybe even more.
Now, what I'm going to do is show you a new function that we have in here. It's called Edge. It allows me to toggle through 3 settings for the scope width in the fixed mode. I could use the mouse and click Fix and go to center. And you get to see all the signals here, and we can navigate. I can adjust the width of it.
And you're just clicking on.
Então, boa noite aí para o nosso amigo Josué. Grande abraço, hein, Josué. Papa Uniforme 1, Bravo, Juliette Lima, Rio de Janeiro. Seja bem-vindo. Que tal um radinho desse, hein? Vai de presente um radinho desse? Que radiaço, hein? Quem não conhece é o Icon IC7850, ok? Essa série limitada, poucos rádios aí no planeta, hein? Todo dourado, né? A frente, a lateral também. Tem umas faixas douradas em cima. Tem uma inscrição, número de série da edição limitada, ok? Tem a assinatura do presidente da Icon lá no Japão. O negócio é chique. É muito chique, né? Esse rádio é show de bola, né? É o que eu falei, né? Um dos rádios que eu acho mais bonitos aí do planeta, ok? Ainda mais dourado, né? Tudo dourado e os botões, nossa, é coisa linda, né? Que radiaço, né? Eu já me contento com um pôster na parede, hein? Imagine quem tem esse radiaço, né? Nossa. Acho que o amigo não dorme, hein, Clóvis? Ele fica ali hipnotizado, olhando só na frente do rádio, né? Esse rádio é perigoso, hein? A partir do momento que você liga, você já fica hipnotizado ali. Você não consegue parar de fazer DX, hein? É rádio aí para toda a vida. Bom, oportunidade com boa noite.
I don't hear any of these guys over here on the edges.
George, what we're going to show here is using the regular band scope. We've got it clicked in for sub band,
Mm-hmm.
and we're running in dual watch. We're split.
Okay.
So in this configuration, my receive side is over here, my transmit side's over here, but I'm listening to both. So we're hearing this guy over here.
Yeah.
But what I'm moving right now is my transmitter with the subband. So I'm transmitting over here. So if I'm transmitting all the way over here, that's a pretty wide pileup.
Right. Yeah.
And how we would hear that is we'd turn down our receiver, and here's the other side of the pileup.
Yeah. If you could kind of figure out where he was working and how far he was moving each time, you could probably just pick you out a good frequency and just click on it, and you're there when he comes to it.
Yes. One of the things that I notice on the 7850 real quick for memory management is the devices that you can use.
Yeah, I see there's an SD card slot here now.
Yes, we had the compact flash in the 7800.
Yeah.
USB for the 7700.
Right.
And now we have an SD card on the 7850.
But it says USB right here beside it. I guess that's for the USB ports in the rear. You can know that they're being used.
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
But in the memory, you can either use the SD or the USB for memory.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And there you go, George. You firm up. So there's firmware updates.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the settings are still the same. Menu system for level, accessories, display, time, and others.
Yep.
There's your network.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you got multiple users.
Multiple users, all your UDP information, your network controls. Okay, George, this is also something that's similar as what's on your 7700. And that's for your sideband receive, high pass, low pass. We can set it up for the tonal quality that you want.
Yeah.
You can either just do it with bass, reduction, increase it, treble.
Oh, yeah.
Or we can come here, roll off.
And just set your own bandpass there. Not that I really do a lot of contesting or de-expeditions or anything like that, but, you know, I still like comfort in my receive audio is if I can have it.
Well, it's not only for contesting and DXing and things like that, but when you sit there and you're rag chewing, you got others in the house that might not want to listen to things that you enjoy. You're going to be under headphones for a period of time. that can give you a lot longer duration of listening,
Mm-hmm.
or listening pleasure, I should say, to
Yeah.
where you don't have all that static.
Well, I think it could, like you were going there, gives you a lot longer time of listening. I mean, in the lifespan of your ears, if you're sitting there constantly, listening to a lot of noise and hiss, you're probably damaging your hearing if you got it up too loud.
Well, George, I appreciate you allowing me to come in and bring this new radio to show you and play around with. We didn't go in as depth as we have on some of the other radios because it looks and feels just like a 7800. The changes that have been done to it, we can't show on camera.
Yeah, they're all
Internal as well as a performance. I mean, some of the performance enhancements folks would notice on a modest antenna, but this is like trying to put a race car in a 30-mile-an-hour school zone.
Well, Ray, thanks for stopping by and bringing that 7850 with you. Boy, what a nice radio. I'm looking forward to hearing some of these on the air.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is KJ4YZI. You're watching Ham Radio Concepts, and what I have on my desk are two magnificent radios: the ICOM IC7610 and the Yaesu FTDX 101D. Now, what's happening in this video? You may be thinking, well, we're going to do a comparison. Well, not really. Let me preface this video with a couple things for a second. In case you didn't know this, there are more people that are more qualified than me to give you numbers about these radios. For instance, the Sherwood report, Rob Sherwood, is light years ahead of my education as far as IMDb and sensitivity and RMDR numbers and stuff like that. So the fact of the matter is this: while Sherwood may say this is like the most sensitive and highest quality receiver he's ever tested, the fact is the average ham doesn't understand what that means, including myself. So we don't have to be experts here. What that means is, in a laboratory theoretical environment, that performs with those specifications on this DX101. A great radio. This is a great radio, brand new.
Boa noite pro Domingos. Grande abraço, hein, Domingos? Tudo de bom. PY2EXU Lima, Victor Delta. Seja bem-vindo. A gente tá babando aqui com alguns rádios, hein? Agora há pouco tinha um Icon aí que a frente toda dourada. Edição limitada, hein? Todo mundo com babador chorando aqui vendo esse rádio, hein? Agora um super Yaesu, hein? Esse também é uma máquina e tanto, tá bom? Esse FTDX 101 Delta, nossa, que radiaço, hein? Dá até com plástico na telinha. Esse é outro grande rádio. Tá bom, mas grande abraço aí, boa noite, tudo de bom aqui, o Domingos. Bom, informando os amigos que hoje iniciamos a aula de CW, ok? Na primeira edição, às 5 horas, na segunda edição, 17 horas. Essa semana inteirinha, só introdução, ok? Falando de sons, falando aí do range, do ouvido humano, pausas, ritmo, cadência no CW, enfim. Né? E toda essa parte introdutória vai até sábado, ok? Então, toda essa semana somente introdução. Na segunda-feira que vem, aí sim, começando para valer no CW. Então, quem quiser iniciar com a gente, dá tempo ainda. Né? Pega essas aulas aí que você perdeu, na parte da manhã, agora à tarde, lá na nossa playlist, aula número 1, ok? É só entrar no YouTube, digitar Rodada Alto-falante e entrar em playlist. Tem todo o curso, 50 videoaulas e boa sorte, ok? Mas, repetindo, só na semana que vem, segunda-feira, a gente já entra nos 2 caracteres, ok? E cada aula, 2 novos caracteres, tranquilo? Então, dá tempo aí para você fazer o curso com a gente. Quem pretende fazer classe B, fazer promoção de classe, embarque com a gente, ok? E boa sorte. Bom, oportunidade aos amigos com boa noite.
probably most accurate in a laboratory, should not make your influence on buying a radio, unless the numbers are way off. I mean, yeah, let's get it. If you got a Chinese radio and numbers are just crap, I get it. Something like this would be way better. But when you're talking about you want to buy one of these radios because your wife is going to let you spend the money, let's talk about the actual radios themselves, not the numbers that were tested in a laboratory. Because if I'm out there making contacts, I don't even think of those numbers. You get where I'm getting with this? Not a comparison. We're not going to flip a switch with a coax and see, is Rob Sherwood right? Is this thing way better with a weak signal? No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. And I'm not going to try to lie to you and tell you that I know what he's talking about. I'll trust the people that are on my channel watching that are way smarter than me. In the meantime, we'll start this video with the DX101D by Yaesu, the ICOM IC7610. I'll show you around both radio. We'll measure them, show you the displays, the connections, how the buttons are laid out, different things. I'm going to try my hardest not to say anything like I like this or this is cool or this is better than that. I'm just going to show side by side. When I'm done, you make the decision. Go watch the other guy on YouTube that gets real technical. Take a little bit of my video, a little bit of his video, a couple other people. Go to Josh, go to everybody else, and check and look and see what you want to buy. Don't listen to, your neighbor that says, well, the factor of this or blah, blah, blah is way better. Well, maybe you don't care. Maybe you like the way the icon looks. Maybe you like that 3D waterfall on the Yaesu. That's what we're going to look at. And thank you to Gigaparts for letting me have like $10,000 worth of radios sitting right here on my desk to the point where I had to move all my stuff over to make room. But without Gigaparts, I would have never had these in my hand to actually look at these side by side and play with them. And the first part of the video will show you. I'll start measuring. But look, let's say you're in an RV. Let's say you're an RVer, right? Here's the very first side by side. The ICOM takes up a smaller footprint. Let's say you're concerned about the real estate. We'll measure these, but look at the size of the DX101 versus the IC7610. Doesn't have anything to do with performance other than the case size when you're looking at this. And this is the kind of stuff I want to show you in this video. So right there off the bat, you can see which one is bigger, right? Do you live in your mom's basement? You got like 5 feet of square area right there and you don't want to have a huge radio? Well, there you can see the size of them. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Let's get into it. We'll turn them on. I got to disconnect my radios back there to hook these things up. And at the end, hopefully you made it that far. Leave a comment and leave a comment about what you think on my method here. Was this an effective method? Not going all technical? Was this an effective method on giving you information on each one side by side for you to make a decision? Leave me in the comments. Let me know. Maybe one day we'll have one of these to give away. That'll be awesome. Check it out. ICOM 7610 and the Yaesu FTDX101D. Both radios have a brilliant 7-inch color TFT screen on the front, roughly 7 inches from corner to corner. So it's very easy to see for someone who is sort of vision impaired and they want a bigger screen. The size of the radios themselves, the FTDX101 is about 16.5 inches, while the IC7610 is about 13.25, and the depth would be about 13 inches on the DX101 and about 11 inches on the ICOM. Let's talk about the connections here for a second on the back of the radio. That's what means a lot to me, to see what I can interface and what connectivity I have for each radio. Yaesu on the left, ICOM on the right. Both have a fan. Both have the same DC power in. The Yaesu has 3 SO239s, number 3 being labeled with a receive. So you can use number 3 as a receive-only antenna. The ICOM has 2 SO239s, and your receive antenna could actually be on the BNC here, receive antenna in and out on the back here. Both of them have USB connectivity on the front and back, but the ICOM has 2 USBs. One is a 3.0, one's a 2.0. Both of them have external display ports, DVI, one here, so you can hook up your external 50-inch screen or your external NEC monitor to see all that glory of both these radios on a huge screen above your shack. Why did they not use HDMI? Because there's more important things, not just slapping an HDMI. You talk about licensing and all kinds of licensing to have the HDMI port and logo on these radios. So they chose an option that is a universal option, not licensed to anybody, the DVI port, which is totally fine. Both of them have all your standard external ALC, your key jacks in the back. You have external meters, speaker outs, and all that. The Yaesu has your linear port here for your Quadra amplifier and a 13-pin accessory port here with some other for transmit, ground, and PTT. The ICOM has ALC send, and it also has 2 accessory ports. One is a 7-pin, one's an 8-pin, and external meter and remote, external keypad, and key as well. One thing that's setting this off from the ICOM versus the Yaesu, if you're into remote operation, the ICOM does have the Ethernet port here, and the server is built into the radio. Simply using the ICOM software, you can plug into this from a router to your radio, operate this remotely, change bands, operate HF away from home. The Yaesu, you have to have an external accessory to enable remote operation via Ethernet. So much stuff going on these screens, right? Well, let's take this one off here for a second. Nobody needs a screen protector on that. I might leave the one on the DX101 just because it's on there like factory tight, and I'm not going to take that off. You can see right here the screen looks brilliant even with the screen protector on. That one was kind of wrinkled. But now these radios can be set up so very differently between the two of them, depending on what you like to see and how you operate it. For the most part, half the time, I don't even play with the bells and whistles and the filtering and stuff like that. So there's so many things to go involved. In fact, I have a video on each one of these by themselves, but I never did go into all the functions on the 101D when I did the video because there's so many things. It'd just be a boring video, much like this 25 minutes you've already watched and haven't seen too much yet. So I get to talking too much. Anyways, obviously we both have a knob in the front. Now, the difference between the two is Yaesu's knob here, it's like a dual purpose or a multi-purpose knob on the front. For instance, you have both of them have the nice weighted feel of a machined knob, but on the Yaesu, you have this secondary knob back here, and this can be used or assigned to several different things, like fine tuning. You can coarse tune, and you can fine tune, set it in for the the clarifier or VC tune or whatever you want to set it to. Okay.
Agora são 18 horas, 56 minutos. E a gente lembra os amigos que quem quiser fazer exame para ingresso no radioamadorismo, fica aí tranquilo que é bem fácil, ok? A primeira dica que eu passo para os amigos, vai lendo os simulados do site da Anatel, ok? Para quem não conhece, é www.anatel.gov.br, ok? Linha, quem acompanha via internet, via live, www.anatel.gov.br. São 2 simulados. Tá? Para quem pretende ser radioamador, não se assuste, tá? Porque são somente 2 matérias para a prova, ok? Legislação de radioamadorismo e técnica e ética operacional. Então, você dando uma lida nesses simulados é o suficiente, ok? E para a coisa ficar bem mais tranquila, quando você estiver estudando simulados, lendo, ok? Com atenção, você não perde tempo em ficar lendo as respostas incorretas, tá bom? O simulado é o seguinte, como o nome fala, tá? Estará simulando a prova, ok? Então, como você vai estar estudando no simulado, a prova vai ser do mesmíssimo jeito, tá bom? Então, para ser uma forma de estudo mais eficiente, você lê a pergunta, lê a resposta correta e vai para frente. Tá? Aí você lê a outra pergunta e lê só a resposta correta, ok? Você tem várias vantagens. Primeiro, você não perde tempo. Segundo, não corre o risco, né, de fazer confusão com a resposta correta, ok? E outra, né? 2, 3 lidas, você faz a prova que você passa numa boa, tá bom? Então, os simulados estão ali, nesse site que eu te passei, ok? É só dar umas 2, 3 lidas em cada simulado, pode marcar a provinha que você passa aí tranquilo, tá bom? É bico, 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 ok? A prova é em forma de teste, né? Não tem como aí você não acertar, tá bom? Então, boa sorte, qualquer dúvida, dá um alô pra gente. Oportunidade aos amigos, com boa noite.
LED that would move as I jump bands here, okay? And that's main. And the arrow here is set up for whatever tune I had that assigned for in the main. And then if I go to sub, now anything blue lit up. So I kind of see where my main and sub is. Okay, so if I wanted to go 40 meters and 17 meters, or let's say 15 meters, I can say, all right, got the contact on 40. Thanks, 7.3, going to 15. Boom. 1, 2, 3. Sub band. I tune it up. Away I go. Not a problem on the 7610. I can pretty much do the same thing with jumping bands like this, and I have my main and my sub on the same screen. Now you can set the radio up here, the 101D, with the same thing. I can have this set up so I have both main and sub on the screen, or you can have it set up like this, where you have the spectrograph or the 3D waterfall and the audio waveform up here, or I could set it to where both main and sub are on the same screen. And I could even split the waterfall and have both on both of these. I can have my waterfall and pan adapter for main and sub receiver on the same screen. So you don't have to flip back and forth here, to different screens here for main and sub. You can have them split both. Okay, so I can go main and sub, or I can put them both on the screen at the same time. One very unique feature that sets this radio apart from the 7610 is the new VC tune, the variable capacitance tune. Think of it as a next generation pre-selector. Button over here, VC tune, okay? And you're going to use the outer ring here on this multifunction knob to basically, with a variable capacitor, instead of switching in with different relays, click, 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 you're kind of sweeping that pre-selector where you can eliminate all this noise or all these strong signals from this shortwave on this scope here. I'm always plagued with just huge signals on shortwave on 40 meters. And sometimes it's so bad, it'll overload my whole waterfall and it makes it hard to hear the weak station. Watch what happens when I turn the VC tune on and how it'll automatically, I can manipulate that pre-selector on a really continuous sliding scale to where I can hear the station I want and it rejects all this strong signal. Check this out.
Agora são 19 horas, 3 minutos. E um negócio importante, a gente lembra da nossa campanha de doação de sangue. Quem puder colaborar, faça uma forcinha, ok? Tem vários hemocentros, vários hospitais, várias referências aí de endereços perto do seu batente, perto da sua casa, ok? Faz uma forcinha e colabore. Eu estava vendo na semana passada um levantamento aí que a quantidade de sangue nos hemocentros e hospitais aí, por conta das festas de fim de ano, caíram muito, já estava baixa, né? Já estava muito baixo. E os doadores sumiram, né? Então, quem puder, colabore, ok? No ano passado, nós doamos aí 3 vezes, né? A primeira e a segunda foram em janeiro, depois em maio, e foi para o filho de um amigo nosso. Estava internado, o Murilinho, filho do Fernando, ok? E a terceira vez agora, em novembro, tá bom? Então, você pode doar aí 3 vezes por ano, não tem problema, ok? Tá? Intervalo de 4 meses, né? E maravilha. E faça doação de sangue, é tudo descartável, não tem o menor risco de contaminação. E você salva uma vida, tá bom? Quem puder, então colabore, ok? Ou, para quem não pode colaborar, algum impedimento de saúde ou idade, enfim, né? Qual for o motivo, colabore divulgando a campanha, ok? Campanha de doação de sangue salva uma vida. E vamos em frente, 19 horas 3 minutos. E agora comparando 2 grandes rádios, o IC 7610 e o FTDX 101 Delta, ok? Esse comparativo é que nem você comparar uma Ferrari e uma Lamborghini, né? As duas são excelentes. No caso aí dos rádios, os dois são top, né? 2 radiaços aí que eu Seria feliz de ter qualquer um dos dois, ok? Excelentes equipamentos. E vamos em frente. Oportunidade com boa noite.
Turn it on there as well. The ASU and the ICOM both have the option of setting up a main waterfall with your spectral graph, the oscilloscope, and the audio frequency waveform, the same thing like on here. And they can be manipulated to the width or the level of the audio waveform and oscilloscope. Let's check out the menu layout on the ICOM and the ASU. We'll start with the ICOM. And the menu layout follows previous radios like the 7300 and 9700 with the icons, a little more picture type grouped icons for the menu and multiple pages within. If you go to set, gives you several different groups of what you're looking for, and then it splits them up into different pages. Pretty neat to know that you have antenna assignments here, which can be had on the ASU as well, to assign different bands and different transmit and receive patterns to different antenna connectors. Also in the menu, easy enough to go right to your multifunction meter and see everything. Power output, ALC, compression, SWR, current, temperature, voltage, S meter, everything at one shot. And recording voice so that you can do voice transmit and not have to yell CQ all the time. And it can be saved to an SD card right in the front of the radio. Let's look at the menu on the FTDX101 here. If you go into function, you have a menu here which also gives you different options for changing the filtering, dynamic noise reduction, noise blanker, Vox, and more. But if you want some other operational settings, then you can click one of these buttons down here and go into another menu that gives you channel step and transmit audio, different things here for parametric equalizers for tailoring your transmit audio to your liking to make it sound the best that it possibly could, as well as receive digital signal processing for contour levels and widths and stuff like that. If we go back here, you also have other ones for display settings. So here's some more scope settings where you can have your scope center, if you want the carrier point or the filter, if you want different things for external monitor. A lot of this stuff is in the options. So both of them have a touchscreen style grouped menu that's both easily accessible on each radio. If we go in here to radio setting, gives you some stuff about modes, sideband, AM, FM. You could change your AGC, your low cut and high cut frequencies, a lot of different ways of tailoring the settings, the filtering, the sounds, everything on this radio. More of a parametric equalizer on the DX101 than there is on the 7610. The Yaesu has the 3D waterfall, but if you're on 2D waterfall, or for 3D for that matter, if you go into scope menu, you can change colors, but they're more of preset colors. Now, some people, and like myself, I like to have the colors that look best for me. So on the 7610, I have it set up with the orange with no fill or fill plus line, with the black behind the orange, no averaging on, or no peak hold. The Yaesu, you're limited to colors. So if you go to color here, I can change it to like this. We can go to 2D here. I can change it like this, but the ICOM really gives you a sense of being able to change it to different colors based on the mixture of colors. You know, if you want it a little bit of red, or you want it a little bit of, there's purple, or maybe you want a little bit of this to make it green, turn this down. You can customize your color to make it really, really easy to see when you're watching the waterfall. Both radios are capable of PSK and RIDI decode mode. This is what they look like. There's the Yaesu, and haven't locked onto a signal yet because I'm just filming. But there is the decode for PSK on 20 meters on the DX101. Here's the PSK decode screen for the ICOM 7610. Both of them have the option to line up the signal on the little spectral graph there, so you can align the digital signal, and both of them can be used with a keyboard and mouse to type the messages, to respond. PSK and RIDI right from the front of the radio without a computer even involved. I'll zoom in and give you a little bit of a close-up so you can see the waterfall in real time on each one of these for about 15 seconds. So if you're interested in the screen on one of these and you really want to see what you'd be looking at, again, they could be set up with different colors, multiple different meters on there, multiple different band scope or audio scope or waterfall, 2D, 3D. They all have their way of being set up, but I just want to show you each one and quite frankly say that both of these radios are just spectacular. Some people say that they don't like the 3D waterfall, and some people say maybe it was a little bit of a gimmick. Some people say they'll never use the 3D waterfall. Some people say that's the future of waterfalls and pan adapters coming. And if you're new to ham radio and you're wondering, why is there a waterfall? Why is it such a big deal that we have a 3D waterfall on a 2D display? Well, waterfalls are really what help us and make us spoiled in ham radio to find signals. Those signals that you may not hear or you don't know were there, and you can scroll and listen to every frequency across the band, or you can look at a wide portion of the band on a screen like this and see multiple contacts or multiple stations at one time and know exactly where the action is. And depending on how they're showing up in the waterfall by the indicating the more powerful or more stronger signal, based on how they show up on the screen. Are they a little tiny dot in that waterfall, or are they a real big column? That's how it would look with the 3D. This would be more of a useful 2D waterfall spectral graph like this, expanded. And again, you can scroll with the line on the radio, go back and forth, and line up your receiver with where the activity is. What did we ever do without a scope? Looking at the 7610 here, 7610 seems to have a very, very fluid motion on the screen. Either way, both of them have a SDR display, and the scope and the waterfall is being handled by software in the radio. One thing on the ICOM that I read about in the 7610 is that they had some issues with screen burn in. So there's an option in there to turn the screen saver on or have the screen go dark after X amount of time of it not being moved or if it's on too long. But from what I understand as well, ICOM is repairing all of them, even if they're out of warranty. If your screen has a burn-in issue, they have been pretty good at using a new style screen and send it in and get it repaired, even out of warranty. So some people have told me, well, no, you can't get that. It's immediately good. No good, no good. Well, that's some people's opinion because maybe they didn't want to send it in to get their screen fixed. And although things can happen, sometimes companies have a little bit of a boo-boo, but ICOM's willing to fix it. So there is no reason to stay away from this because of the screen. If you have a model that has a screen issue, they will fix it. Such a lackluster video, right? My goal here, again, was, I didn't really mean it to be too long. And sometimes going through these radios, then I find something I never knew about or something that I saw and didn't think that you'd be interested, but maybe you are. It's very hard to explain everything about each radio and just to show you in general what they look like and what kind of features each one has in a nutshell to help you make your purchase. The moral of the story is it's not easy doing this. And there are other YouTubers out there that you should check out as well who have looked at a 7610, who have looked at a FTDX 101. And then you could put all that together and make your own decision. I'd love to have an antenna up that I could have two identical antennas or AB switch on one antenna and pretty much show you the difference on which one is more powerful or which one would really do you justice of finding that weak signal. But right now I'm limited with my antennas because of the hurricane. They all came down in preparation. And then now I can't put them back because I have other storms out there in the Atlantic. And just when I put them up with my bad shoulder, they'll come right back down. So unfortunately, these radios got to go back to Gigaparts. Thanks very much for letting me borrow them, but my time is up with them. So I hope you understand that it took the majority of hours during a day to bring you this.
Deeper in one of the set menus on what you have your low end and your high end roll offs for it.
Now, back to CW. All right, that's the same. VSC is the same.
At one of the field day events where I brought some of the 7700s and 7800s, I had a wife walk up to me that was familiar with ham radio, but just couldn't understand why to spend that kind of money. And I just came off the radio for about 6 hours, heavy pileup, heavy noise like what we see in field day. And my response was to her that being able to hold a conversation in a normal tone without having to repeat each other several times was a reason why the cost of the product.
Yeah.
Because hearing fatigue over a 4, 6, 8 hour period is something that really becomes noticeable, whether you have a headache or you just can't hear. Taking the filters and adjusting them so you take out that interference, that hiss, the white noise, and some of the guys up and down the band.
No, it really makes a difference. I mean, I know coming from a broadcast background, I was always concerned with listener fatigue. I mean, most of the program directors wanted loud. Loud is all you want, but to me, no, I wanted it loud as I could get it, but still not make somebody's ears bleed in the process. You know, then they can listen longer. You know, you can hang in there longer when you're not forced. You might hear it on another receiver without good filters and maybe with fast AGC and stuff, but how long can you do that before you're just exhausted?
I've played with some of the older radios without the DSP, and around 4 hours is when I can really start feeling the fatigue set in. So, but one of the nice things, we do have the high-end radios with the 7800 and 7700. The nice thing about it is those design concepts are built in these radios and they trickle down to the other radios as well.
Yeah, I have noticed that, you know, I've run a number of different ICOM rigs here on the bench just through testing, and I've noticed they all seem to have similar functionality and a similar sound. I mean,
similar sound, even the button layouts.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the reasons why this felt comfortable to you when you first turned it on is because of your experience that you had with the 7410.
Yeah. Yeah, I was amazed at how much alike the radios were. Now, of course, there's a lot more features on the 7700, but it felt similar. The 7410, if I was, you know, in the market for a radio in that price range, to me, it compares very favorably with this one. You know, it sounds very similar when I'm listening to it. And I guess the DSPs are kind of kin to each other.
Well, we use different DSP engines in each one of the products. We've used Analog Devices, we use Texas Instruments, and we've even used some of the Analog Devices shark fin product. But one of the things that's consistent is the coding that we put into those devices. So it allows, regardless of whose product we use, to have the same look and feel throughout the product line.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at some of the buttons on this rig here. There's a lot of them, but they're really not that intimidating. There's a few that I don't know here, so I'm just going to stop and ask you as we come across those.
That's fine. Now, one thing with the bigger radios, and when we looked at some of the smaller ones, people have commented about the menu systems and embedding. And the thing is, when you go with a smaller front panel, less knobs, less controls, you got to put them somewhere.
Yeah.
And over time, you might not see at the very beginning, but over time you'll dig in and want to make some adjustments or some tweaks to the radio, and you have to go somewhere for it.
Right. If we start over here in the top left-hand corner, everyone will know what this button is right here. Of course, that's a power. Right below it's transmit, and that's the same as push to talk or pressing the key, depending on which mode you're in. This one has an auto tuner already built in it. You can see I've got it engaged right now. So I don't really have to mess with my manual tuner up here if I'm not going to be using my app. A timer. Now, why would I need a timer? Is this to remind me to ID, or what is the timer for?
The timer on it is to have the radio come on or turn off at certain times.
Okay.
So some of us have our radios right by our bed. That could be your alarm clock to come on.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And some of the buttons do have multi-layer functions. Like the tuner, we can turn off or turn on But if you push and hold it, that will force it to go into tune mode. Same thing with the timer. You turn the push and hold it, and it will come on and give you your list of timers, what the action is going to do, the day, if you want it to repeat, the on time, the off time, and what memory channel to come up on.
Oh, okay. So I can just set all my nets in there and it'll automatically come up at the right times and bring it on for that net, shut down, and
Yes.
when the other net comes on this afternoon on a different band.
You also have a sleep function on it as well.
Of course, headphones, we know what that is. Electric key, that's for a CW key.
Yes, sir.
All right. Of course, microphone. You'll notice I don't have a microphone plugged in here. Since I run external microphone and some audio gear here, I'm just feeding the audio through the accessory port in the back, which I can do with any of the ICOM rigs.
You can. A lot of people do the outboard processing, while the radio itself has a nice microphone processor. But through the back, you bypass all the pre-emphasis through the microphone circuit, which gives you basically a broadband or baseband audio level.
Right, and then you have more control over your EQ and all. I'm not a CW guy or much of a digital guy, although I will work PSK31 occasionally. And I think it's fantastic that this one already has PSK31 and RIDI decode, but encode as well.
Right, and also you can plug in a USB keyboard
Yes.
in the front here. Two USB ports for two different reasons. One could be used for your profiles.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a 7700 at home. I want to come here and operate from your location because propagation is a little bit different here in 5-land than it is up in Washington. So I can bring the memory and everything of my radio, plug it in here, and tell your radio to read from it, and boom, it is set up exactly like mine at home.
That's pretty nice.
The second one's for a USB keyboard. And there's some nice little keyboards that would slide right up underneath here.
Yeah.
Or, George, you could put a nice keyboard tray here.
Yeah, and roll it in
And
and
sit
out.
there and do RTTY right from the keyboard and PSK31.
I've seen other rigs that have the RIDI decode in them, but I think this is the first one I've played with personally that has RIDI and PSK31, not only the decode, but the encode as well.
Now, I've talked to a few people that they don't even use a keyboard. They use the pre-coded memories for the...
And that's not bad because some of those guys on there are pretty fast.
Oh, yeah.
And they always say the same thing. So if you've got it in memory, hey.
Well, it sounds like the digital modes are like contesting. Everybody's
Sorta.
5.9 or 5.99.
Yep. What is break-in? You know, I hear that term a lot, and I'm sure a lot of people, don't exactly understand that.
Well, there's two functions to the break-in. There's a semi-break-in and then full break-in. Full break-in is also, you'd hear people talk about if your amplifier is QSK compatible.
Mm-hmm.
The full break-in is what most of your CW contesters will run. And as crazy as it sounds, when these guys are doing 35, 40 words a minute, they actually listen in between the dits and das that they send.
That is crazy.
And when you're looking at logging as many cues that you can per hour, and you're sending CQ, instead of waiting and listening for that entire CQ, somebody might start sending their call right back to you. And if you hear CW in between your dits and das when you're supposed to be transmitting, that's more than likely somebody that is wanting to put you in their log.
Yeah, instead of doubling, you actually know that they're there.
Exactly.
That's a good description. That's pretty neat. Now, monitor, is this for your monitoring your own audio through the headsets, or what is monitor?
Well, this is one that I know Uncle Bob's going to correct me on, but yes and no. You can hear your audio from the microphone, but you're not getting an RF sample of what you sound like going over the air.
Right. Well, yeah, and I think that's true with just about any rig.
But it does give you a basic idea if you're yelling and screaming into the microphone or what your audio contouring sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Of course, microphone and RF power here, that's the mic gain, and that's how much power we're putting out. Now, you notice I got the mic gain down. That's because I'm running my audio in through the accessory port in the rear, but having it right up front here makes it pretty nice. I don't have to go through any menu or anything. If I'm using the mic jack, I can quickly dial in how much mic gain I need right there. Right. AGC and squelch. I never use a squelch on an HF rig. but I guess maybe some people do.
Well, one thing about this radio, you also do 6.
Well, that's true, and you would want the squelch there.
But there are some people that do use a squelch. If they're looking for a band opening, why listen to all the static all the time? Just put the squelch where it's just above the noise. And if 10 meter opens up, you're going to hear it come above that squelch threshold.
Okay, well, I always wondered why there was a squelch on an HF radio, but that makes sense.
But the AGC is a fun one.
Yeah, I noticed that. You know, most rigs, maybe they've got a couple of 2 or 3 speeds of AGC, but I pushed this button right here, and I was kind of surprised to see what it did.
Well, right over here on the screen, you see the AGC. It's right now VR for variable. But when it's off, just like what you're saying, you got your slow, your fast, and your mid.
Mm-hmm.
Secondary function of the button goes into your decay times that you can custom and dial in. Now, you can also set the default, which on CW mid is 0.5. But there are times when you're either contesting or you're DXing that those quick jumps are not enough for you. So you hit the AGC VR, and then you can make the adjustments from fast to slow. And it's fully variable at that point.
That's also, we're talking about, I use the term listener fatigue. That kind of helps you tune how much of that you're going to stand. I mean, sometimes you need faster if it's weak signals or if there's a lot of signals and of different strengths. But the more you can back off that towards slow, the easier it is to listen to me. Is that true?
That's true. Also, on 80 meters, it's more of a user preference. We were on 80 earlier, and for me, I don't like the pumping of the AGC that you get from static crashes. So I can come here and make an adjustment. If I'm working a real weak signal, I might want this a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Agora são 19 horas 26 minutos. Lembrando, quem perdeu a aula hoje, primeiro dia de aula, numa jornada de 4 meses, você pega a aula lá na playlist, ok? Na primeira edição foi às 5 horas e na segunda edição, 19 horas. Lembrando que, para valer, a semana que vem, segunda-feira, começa, tá bom? E toda essa semana, introdução. Então, a gente fala aí do CW, dos sons, de pausas, enfim. Elementos importantes do CW, mas é toda uma introdução até sábado, ok? Agora, pegar para valer, na segunda-feira a gente começa, tá bom? Então, quem perdeu a primeira aula hoje, pega na playlist, que não tem problema, ok? Você continua aí o curso com a gente. Quem quiser também dá tempo, né, que não pegou a primeira aula aí na primeira edição ou na segunda edição, pega na playlist, tranquilo? E boa sorte. Lembrando, serão 4 meses de aulas. Janeiro, fevereiro, março e abril. Sendo que 2 turmas são para deficientes visuais. Na primeira edição, 5 horas. Na segunda edição, 17 horas, ok? Então, você, amigo radioamador, deficiente visual, poderá fazer com a gente aí o curso, tranquilo? Sem nenhum problema. E também vai aprender, vai passar na provinha e maravilha. Então, boa sorte e vamos lá. Oportunidade com boa noite.
With the noise reduction, it's either on or off, and then your noise reduction control.
On a night when there's a lot of static in there, a lot of lightning static, if you've got decent signals on the other guys, you can work with that RF gain and the noise reduction here. You can just about eliminate that static in between transmissions. You don't hear much of anything. Now, the voices don't sound as good, so that's a compromise. I only want to use as much noise reduction as I need to do the job, but it can really cut down on that fatigue.
Now, also, the one nice thing about the noise reduction, depending on the signal that you're working with, you can use a little bit more noise reduction on it, and it won't distort the signal.
So, of course, on the display here, we've got a row of function buttons across the left side, and across the bottom here, And these change as you go in different functions of the radio or in different modes, so that you're seeing what's appropriate at that time.
That's one of the things I like about the ICOM HF design team's philosophy is we've heard about menus, and there's so many things in menus, and when do I use this? When do I use that? Why not take some of that out of the way? If you're in sideband, why put CW functions to sift through? If you're in CW, why go through the phone settings? You don't need equalizer settings or compression settings in CW. So why put it for you to filter? The top section will stay pretty much the same. The lower two will change here. And then these are for your display settings. And these will change either for the selection that you pick, the different functionality that you have with this section of the screen.
Looking at this one here, antenna 1, there's 4 different antenna ports on the rear of this rig right here.
Push and hold it. You now have a complete.
Ô, grande Figueiredo, abraço, tudo de bom. Como foi de Réveillon, Natal, tudo tranquilo? Grande abraço, também um feliz 2023, muita saúde, prosperidade e QSJ no bolso. Tá bom, Figueiredo? Obrigado pelos votos. E estamos no aguardo, hein? Estamos divulgando aqui o evento aí no segundo domingo de setembro, tá bom? E aguardando aí você dar o ok sobre o ponto de encontro dos radioamadores em Santo Amaro, tranquilo? Se tiver alguma novidade, dá um alô pra gente e eu passo para os amigos. Tá bom? Então estamos aí aguardando, hein? Ok. E torcendo, né, também para que dê certo esse ponto de encontros em Santo Amaro. Tá bom, Figueiredo? Então tá aí, oportunidade aos amigos com boa noite.
Yellow star. That indicates that you're not on the primary antenna that you've got programmed in.
The meter button here, this is pretty nice. I like this meter. I like the the old
swinging needle.
The old swinging needle, and you can select what you want to see there for transmit or receive.
Now it's fun to watch people look at that needle and see it swing. How much code went in to make that needle swing just like an analog? But for those that like to see an analog meter movement, on the back of the radio is a voltage output port that allow you to build your own meter, or there's a couple of commercial meters out there so you can have your external needle.
So I could have a meter up here this big sitting above it and be swinging it.
Oh yeah.
But being able to select ALC or the compressor or the voltage of this is the final stage, is that
Yes, sir.
correct? Or the current of the final stage. I could look at those two and tell pretty quickly whether or not I'm looking at a bad antenna out there. Or
Push and hold it.
There's more.
So you've got everything right there, all your multimeter right there in front of you. Next, we've got the preamp, 1, 2, and then off.
Mm-hmm.
But say you turn your preamp 1 on. Instead of toggling through for a contester, they want to cut down the amount of time possible. You just push and hold it, and immediately goes from preamp 1 to off.
Okay.
And there are times when you'll turn the preamp off, and then there's times that you'll put the attenuator on. And the significance of 6, 12, or 18. Now, one thing that you got to be careful on the manufacturer's sensitivity specs. We allow you to turn the preamp 1 and 2 on. Our specifications are with preamps. Some of our competitors show you a specification, but their preamps are on all the time. They do allow you to turn it off, and then that is their attenuation.
Huh.
So in a real strong RF environment, or you're trying to work a weak signal and you got some strong signals around you, the attenuator becomes very powerful for you.
Yeah.
And the goal at this point is not how strong that signal is, but how you weaken the noise around it. It's basically improving your signal to noise ratio. And a lot of people don't really understand how to do that. And it comes into a combination of using your preamp, your attenuator, and then your RF gain to bring your RF gain to where you're just at the edge of that signal. And the goal is, at least for contesting and even for DXing, to get them in your log. You might not want for rag chewing to sit there and listen to a real weak signal then the whole time while you're talking to them. But there again, it might be somebody you really want to talk to.
Yeah.
But playing around with these three controls can really change what you're listening to.
Now, right below that, we've got the AGC. We've already talked about that. 1/4 off, 1/4 on.
Now, the 1/4 off and 1/4 on comes on for two needs. One is CW, and the other one's your digital modes. What that does is it changes your tuning ratio
So you
that
can
you have.
fine tune it.
You not only have your tuning step where on the icons you push and hold to go from 10 hertz to 1 hertz tuning resolution, but this might be too fast for one revolution. You go from 0.027 to 0.528. But if I turn it on, and you'll see the indication come here, it now changes it.
Yeah.
The 0.27 now becomes several rotations.
Yeah. So you can really zero right in on them easy.
Yes.
And now if I go to sideband or something, that button is something totally different.
Well, yes, it is. We come here to sideband, that becomes your compression button.
Yep. And so compression off and...
Oh, that one's got multi things for it. You got your compression off and on, but if you push and hold it, that's your transmit bandwidth.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of fun things that you can do with that, especially if you're contesting in phone. You can change your bandwidth, and I normally run it in a mid. It lops off a lot of the lows and the highs, gives me good fidelity, and as Bob says, articulation, and allows me to command a pileup.
Yeah.
And for those that have ever been in a contest, you hear people that are searching and pouncing that come across you. They work you, they hear you got a big pileup going, and then they'll plop down right next to you trying to pull the cues off your pileup. You can go there to wide, broaden your signal a little bit.
And now that's not a good place for them to land.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Of course, I rag chew, so I kind of like the wide setting. I like to listen to wide audio. If there's not somebody right beside you there, you know, that's much more pleasant to listen to. It doesn't cut now like a mid or a narrow signal would, but it's a nice, comfortable.
But you can tailor all of that deeper in one of the set menus on what you have your low end and your high end roll offs for it. Now
back to CW. All right, that's the same. VSC is the same whether I'm on either mode there. What is VSC?
The voice scan control allows you to scan through frequencies, and if they're heterodynes or there's non-voice characteristics there, it'll stop, it'll notice it's not a voice characteristic, and it will ignore it.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
So if there's several nets that you're waiting to come on, see if anybody starts checking in early, you can scan your frequencies and have that and ignore everybody that's tuning up on those frequencies before the net starts.
Of course, we've got the scope here. We looked at that a moment ago, but we didn't talk a lot about it.
The scope is got some real interesting functionality to it. We have two different modes to it. Center, which the frequency that you're operating on is the center of the scope, and F1 changes so we can look at the variable spans here. When you're in a center mode, your frequency is the center of it, so everything kind of shifts.
Right.
That's a little difficult, especially if you're doing contesting, search and pounce. We're going to go to CW mode for this demonstration and go to center. Right now it's from 14 to 14,350. I can come into the set mode, toggle over to the upper limit, and come down to, say, 14.090. That's now the CW portion of the band.
And so I'm not seeing all these sideband signals out here. I've expanded where I'm seeing
yes,
the CW portion in greater resolution.
It's kind of like a fish finder. Oh, yeah.
Everybody now has a fish finder in their boat because it's no longer the fun, let's sit on the boat, toss a line out, maybe we'll catch a fish. Well, we can sit there and call out CQ all we want, or we can go look at a peak. There's a pretty nice signal there.
Mm-hmm. I believe that's a big old bass.
There you go. Now there's an attenuation for the receiver, but there's also an attenuation for the scope.
Now, marker there, that's just showing me the frequency that I will be transmitting on. Is that what this does?
Well, the marker will do several things for you. On the 7800, since you've got two receivers,
Mm-hmm.
the marker will be main, sub, and then where you transmit if you're in split. So when you go into the split mode, let's push and hold. Let me get this set up just a little bit. So when we go into split mode, you can now see where you receive
Mm-hmm.
and where you transmit. So if you're working a DX pileup,
Right.
and they're running split, and you're trying to set your transmit and your receive and your transmit on top of the right spots, you can then visually see what's going up on the pileup.
Now, hold, that just freezes the signal at that moment in time.
Yes.
So if I think there's a guy over here, he's just splattering, or he's real wide, or I know something doesn't look right about that signal, but I only see it pop up every now and then, I can hit this button and get a snapshot where I can go back. And
You could do it that way, and then go over to take a look at it.
uh-huh.
And it's really good to use the hold in the center mode, but in the fixed, it's the blue is your history where the white is the active. So you're going to still see the activity that's going on around it.
And then, of course, the set, that allows me to set some functions for the scope here. We just looked at the edges there.
It'll allow you to set so many different things on it. And I'm going to take it off of the wide function, and you can put a mini scope up.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reason why I'm doing that is I want to show you some of the things that you can do with it. I can change any color that I want.
Well, that's pretty neat. And I guess particularly for someone who is colorblind, that give them a lot more control over getting some colors, that shades they could see.
It will. And I've got a friend of mine where on her 7800, she's got the current activity in pink.
Mm-hmm.
So you can customize it. But there again, like what we were talking about before, DEF will take it to the defaults.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're back there to the blue for history and the white color for your active. For CW, you've got your keyer.
Where you can have pre-programmed in messages. And
Great for field day.
yeah.
I mean, it's not what a lot of the contesters will use. They'll use their keyboard for their favorite logging software as a key and things. But for operators for field day, it's great to program them in, or special event stations. And you can set out your CQ and your information, and then your setting modes for it. Now, on your electric key that we were talking about earlier, I can come in here and make adjustments to it, like my paddle polarity.
Mm-hmm.
You're left-handed, I'm right-handed. You have it normally wired up how you like it. That's all I got to do to be able to make it function like I'm used to.
Oh, okay.
Just come in and change it from the normal wiring to the reverse. Keyer type, electric key, bug key, straight key. Even the capability, if you're using a microphone with the up-down buttons, you can send CW with that. I've had people come up to me at shows going, you showed me that. I'm not that proficient at it, but at least I can send out a CQ. More functions, your memory channels.
And you can see I've discovered that one and have put a few things in there.
Wait a minute. Nolans?
Nolans, that's some guys down in Nolans that talk.
Now, I keep mentioning about the USB. I'm going to show you real quick here, George. We go into set mode, USB. I can then save to a USB thumb drive. So if you ever come out and visit me and
I can bring my Nolans with me.
Yes, sir. In fact, I've got a friend of mine that's got a few of these, and he says he never leaves home without his thumb drive. For each one of his family members, he's got their profiles all set on a thumb drive so they can go wherever. Now we're into the set mode. We've got levels, accessories, display, time, and then others.
Mm-hmm.
The others is our laundry list, where regardless of what mode you're in, you're going to have these things in there. One of them is a calibration marker, your keyboard, how you want it to perform, your RS-232 function. And just some of those you set once and forget it.
Yeah.
But the one that a lot of people set, they forget, and then they call technical support, is a calibration marker. When you turn that on and you look at your scope,
And now what's that letting me do? See where the...
that's your calibration marker. We'll get phone calls, and this is on, I think, the 7600, as well as the 77, 7800. Well, there's a birdie in my radio.
It happens every 100 kilohertz, huh?
Turn it off. In the set mode, we've got levels. In your levels, you can set up your receive, high pass, low pass, or bass and treble, your transmit, your speech levels, your side tone levels for CW, your beep.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns that tone down. Your voice, your phone levels. But you do all your processing externally, so you really wouldn't use any of the levels here. Your accessory, which you do use through the back.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one real nice thing with the 7700 and 7800 is there's Sony Philips IOs on the back of the radio. Allows you to do your digital modes using a Sony Philips.
Agora são 19 horas 46 minutos. E lembrando que hoje iniciamos mais um curso. Serão 4 meses de aulas. E essa semana toda, somente introdução, ok? Falamos aí de alguns detalhes do CW, como sons, como pausas, como a duração do som, o range, enfim, né, uma série de conceitos que são usados até na música e a gente está usando aqui também no radioamadorismo. Então, quem quiser fazer o curso com a gente, dá tempo. Né? Semana que vem, na segunda-feira, a gente começa para valer. Serão os 2 primeiros caracteres só na segunda-feira que vem, ok? Toda essa semana, somente uma preparação aí dos amigos, uma introdução ao CW, ok? Falando de vários elementos bem importantes, porém, né, para valer mesmo, segunda-feira que vem, tá bom? Então, dá tempo aí de você fazer o curso com a gente. Quem pretende promoção classe B, vai se preparando e começa aí com a gente, tá bom? São 19 horas e 47 minutos. Lembrando os amigos que temos também a campanha de doação de sangue a todo vapor. Quem puder colaborar, temos hemocentros, temos vários hospitais aí que você pode ajudar, ok? Faça aí uma contribuição, um pouquinho só de sangue que você ajuda, será de grande valia, ok? Lembrando, doação de sangue salva uma vida. E vamos em frente. Oportunidade com boa noite.
The LCD backlights, and then you have your contrast and brightness for the screen, because as you're working through a long period of time, you might have a dark shack, but during the daytime, lights coming in from outside, you can make adjustments for that. Your timers, you've got 2 different clocks up here. You can have them have the second one turned on or turned off. The different name for it. You can program it how you want to. And it's actually once you set it, it's fairly accurate. And then, like we saw earlier, not only can you load, but you can do your firmware formatting and then tell it to unmount so you can pull it out.
Okay, well, I know what sideband is, and I know what CW is, and RIDI and PSK, and we didn't look at that.
Up in the top, you've got your indicator for marking space. It's not too bad. I used to do RTTY a long time ago all the time and got where I could hear it without looking at the indicator. Can't decode it like on Phenomenon.
Okay, and you still need a display to decode.
Still need the display to decode it, but I do get where I can hear and recognize when I'm tuned in.
Yeah, so just plug in a keyboard and we're ready to operate RIDI.
Or
yeah, use a memory keyer.
But you got your waterfall display here. You have both RTTY normal as well as reverse, where it swaps the marking of space. But along with the RTTY filtering, we're at 500 with the bandpass filter. We can go to 250. But the DSP has got a twin peak filter. So it will put an additional filter peak on both the mark and the space.
It really makes them pop out in weak conditions, I guess.
Oh yeah, make them really come out. But a lot of people don't know about the twin peak filter. It's under the APF button when you're in the RTTY mode.
And of course we can do PSK with it as well.
Yes.
Basically the same thing. We got a display here, plug in our keyboard or use a memory keyer, and we're right in there on PSK without a computer, just like with RIDI. If we come back out and look at some of the other modes, of course, I think we all know what AM and FM are. Let's just step down here, go to AM, and I'll just tune on down in the broadcast band here. This
has to be above ground, which means
now on our bandwidth there, we can go out 10 kilohertz wide, which means we're actually, most AM stations only go to 7.5 now. And yeah, we make it as narrow as we want. On here, you can really tell how much better AM radio sounds than it does in the car or on a transistor.
Oh yeah.
Or anything else. Superb AM receiver. Of course, it's got FM too. Now, not FM broadcast, but 10 meter, 6 meter FM as well. You can run FM anywhere.
Oh yeah.
It's just not that common.
We have an auto-tune function. The auto-tune function works in CW as well as in AM.
Oh, really?
Will be handed a tape.
So we can be a little bit off.
That's pretty neat. So it finds the carrier and tunes right to it.
So if you come up to some of the broadcast, and I like listening to some of the shortwave stuff down in the 6 megahertz range. And the scope comes in a little bit helpful.
Oh yeah, you can tell right where they are.
Beijing Morning Post headline: packing in my self-service gains popularity at Kyushu. Apparently, people packing myself.
Oh.
Yeah, just tune that 10 kilohertz whistle right on out.
Yeah, you can, and you can even change the width of that notch.
Huh. So data, what is data?
It depends on the modes that you're operating on. Say you're using a sound card software package. Well, that's data. So if you're doing RTTY or PSK31 slow scan TV, you're told to go to sideband, but your microphone's going to be live if you have one connected to the front. When you put data on, you then have your setting of D1, D2, D3. And depending on how you've got it set up in a set mode on whether D1, D2, or D3 is here, the Sony Philips, or the accessory jack on the back of the radio.
Oh, okay.
So you can toggle through turning it on and pushing and holding to toggle between D1, D2, and D3.
Okay. All right, cool. And we know what M-scope is. That was the little mini scope up here.
Yes.
course, exit setup, we've been pressing that anytime we want to get out of where we are, except miniscope where we just hit that button again.
Yes.
Now we got a row down here. Drive. This is used with AM. Is it used with anything else?
The drive gain control adjusts the transmitter level at the driver stage, and it's active in all modes other than SSB with compression off.
Okay. So everything but single sideband, the drive is active.
Well, single sideband when the compression is turned on.
Okay. Okay. So that's basically the audio drive level that's going into the compressor at that point, is how hard
Yes.
you're hitting the compressor. Well, the compressor button here does the amount of compression. And all of these here, you push it in, the button pops out, you make your setting, and you push it back in so it doesn't get bumped.
Yes.
Now, you'll notice I have the compression off here on mine. Of course, I could just hit the button and turn it back on, but I'm running external compression, so I don't use it. But it is there and variable if you want to use that. Now, the monitor gain, this is for plugging in a set of headphones and listening to yourself. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the reason why it's on the front panel is if you're working a real weak signal and you're using your DSP and you're filtering, and it's to the point where you got to use a lot of headphone amplification.
Yeah, you don't want to knock yourself.
As soon as you transmit, boom, it's going to hit you. So you've got your monitor gain so you can make the adjustment.
And your Vox gain and your anti-Vox for setting up your Vox so you don't have to do your push to talk. Contrast and brightness both here for the display. Voice recorder or voice memory.
If you miss a call sign, you can quickly hit play and it will play back the last so many seconds, I think 20 seconds.
Through your speaker locally, but it doesn't transmit it over the air.
That is correct.
So what does the record do then?
The voice memory record has two functions. The first is if you just push to record the previous received signal for a preset time. And the preset is in the voice set mode. But the second one is if you push and hold for a second, it will record until you tell it to quit recording.
Oh, okay. So if I wanted to capture something just quickly here, I could do that.
Yes, and then the playback button will play it back.
And then we get over here to this set of buttons here. This is a numeric keypad, of course, but it also lets you go straight from one band to the other without having to shuffle up and down through a menu. You can just go straight from 160 meters to 20 meters or wherever you want to go. F input, that's going to be frequency input. So if I just want to directly enter a frequency, I could hit that button and I could say, let's go to 14.268. Press it again, and I'm right there.
Now, one thing that is also on the keypad that we've done for many years is what we call triple band stack registers. So I can toggle through 20 meters. There's 14.285, 14.200, and 14.268. So if you're running a contest where you've got to stay in the same band for a certain period of time, but you can change frequencies within that band, you can look at 3 different areas.
Okay. And so each time I press, it goes to a different frequency there.
The last 3 that you had been in that, and it will also remember the mode. So you go to 180, it's the last 3 in 180, 80 meters on all of them.
Okay. Well, that's good. I didn't realize that was there. And I see it also remembers where I've got the filter set and all of that as well. That's pretty cool. What is GENE?
General coverage.
Okay, just to make it a general coverage receiver then.
Yes.
All right. And of course, this is stepping through my memory channels here that I had programmed in. Memory write and read. No?
We've called them scratch pad memories.
Okay, so you can just catch something. I know I'm going to want to come back here.
Yes, depending on how you've got it set up in the set mode, I believe it's 5 and 10 that you can have. So you can quickly change bands. So set up for a contest, your 5 bands and the frequencies that you want to operate on those bands. You can quickly go to it.
Okay. And then, of course, memory write. and then select between the VFO and the memory, and it's wherever I had the VFO last.
They're all tunable memories. And what I mean by that is you go to a memory channel and I can tune off of it.
That's
So
right.
I'm not
yeah.
locked solid on that one.
You don't have to go back to VFO before you can start dialing again.
Right. And it's helpful for those that might not have a stable transmitter on one of those nets.
AB, that allows me to select between the two VFOs.
Yes.
And A equals B just copies whatever's in A over to the B VFO.
Yes, it does. And a couple other things. So say you've got a tighter filter, if you're listening here, but you hit the XFC, it's going to go back to the other filter that you have in your other VFO.
Okay.
So you can be extremely tight here on your filtering and a little bit wider on where you're going to transmit.
Okay. That's a good idea.
And then you see the real bright white light to let you know you're in split mode. And I've had a lot of guys tell me that while it seems obnoxious when they first use it, it saved them. And you're in split mode, you're not talking to who you think you are.
Yep.